everyone. Happy Thursday, and we're going live about a half hour late today because it's a spy stream kind of day. And when we're doing spy stream on the channel, I can't control when we go live. We are at the whim of the people that we are spying on. And today's presentation starts at 6, so we went live at 5:30, so you get a little half-hour break. Naruto says, let's kick off the stream with some good news. Ben Sass just announced he's retiring from Congress. Well, I'm not altogether upset about that. I'm also, quite frankly, not upset that Joe Biden has announced that he is going to be pardoning everyone who is convicted of possession of weed, because I think he should. That's stupid. Trump, quite frankly, should have done it, but he didn't. So now Biden's going to do it. And now what's going to happen is the conservative right is going to backlash against what Biden is doing. And they're going to say, no, we should have harsher penalties for weed. And they're going to lose even more votes in November than what they've already lost with all of their social conservatism nonsense. That's not what we're talking about today. That's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are going to be doing a fun activity, and that is spying on the insane progressives in New Hampshire who keep doing, like, every couple of months. I mean, this is really regular. Every couple of months, these people do a webinar about how Free Staters are a hate group in New Hampshire. And so we are good. We have the Zoom link for their webinar. They're getting started at about 6 o'clock, and we are going to be watching it together. And we have got a full and complete night with this. And in order to, I can't just do this on my own, guys. You know, there are a lot of Free Staters in New Hampshire who might have something to say about the progressives doing yet another presentation about how they're a hate group. And so I have brought on my friend and yours, the #1 liberty activist in the state of New Hampshire, Mr. Dennis Pratt. Dennis, welcome to the stream.
Hello. So just so you know, I do actually have my little.
You should.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, it's clear, but we can definitely see it. #1 liberty activist of the year in the state of New Hampshire. Well deserved, Dennis.
And plus, the edge actually shines gold, which I love.
Does it really? Oh, that's so nice. What a good treat. Well, Dennis, what are we watching here tonight? What's going on?
We just got back from fall foliage bus tour, which was a lot of fun. And we took a whole busload through the Kangamankas mountains and saw all the leaves changing. We took them on a boat trip. We met with 5 different porcupine groups all throughout the north regions. And we've just been having a lot of fun doing that.
Well, I think that's amazing. And I definitely think there's lots to see when you come to New Hampshire. Hopefully we get some new movers out of the fall foliage bus tour. But what great, I mean, you had pretty good weather for that tour, didn't you? I mean, it's been kind of perfect the last couple of days. A little rain here and there, but the weather has finally calmed down.
Yeah, Carol and I went up the week before to check on what the leaves looked like, and it was raining. The leaves hadn't really changed that much, and we were panicking. But 1 week later, it was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful sun, lots of sun. We got those fluorescent yellow, orange, red that is so intense up here. And it was really a lot of fun. We had people from South Carolina, New Jersey, New York, met some people from Pennsylvania, more people closer to New Hampshire. California, come out and visit us.
Yeah, California, come out here. We're way better than California. Incognito says, Miss K, you spoil us. Remember rule if kids shown. I don't think any kids are going to be shown tonight because this is going to be a bunch of angry progressives talking about how they don't like libertarians in the state. So let's take a look at what we're going to be watching here in about 25 minutes. This is something put on by an organization called New Hampshire Listens. And they're partnering with a whole mess of people, Dennis. They're partnering with the University of New Hampshire. They're partnering with several local police offices. And it's called Understanding and Preventing Hate-Based Activity, because you know that New Hampshire is an epicenter of white supremacist hate, apparently, according to these progressive groups. The Maine and New Hampshire seacoast area have experienced increased hate-based activity in recent months. Please join us for an informative online presentation and Q&A with area police departments and local community groups working to address hate-based activity. Talk with your neighbors about proactive and effective ways to respond. Learn about how to identify symbols affiliated with hate groups, active groups identified in our area, how activity in the seacoast compares regionally and nationally, and actions you can take if you encounter literature and activities of hate groups. Dennis, why do we think that this presentation is going to be about how much progressives hate free staters?
I actually live on the seacoast, and so I guess I'm part of the hate group that we supposedly have. To tell you the truth, though, I think these people are the most hateful people there are. It's all this kind of very projection of their own hate. I mean, if you think about it, libertarianism is actually a way that we can get along even when we're different from one another, and we can accept one another as being different. We may not actually like each other, but we go, oh, you guys go do your thing. These people, though, they hate anybody who's different, anybody who does not agree with their dogma. And so what they want to do is they want to kind of smash us and smash us down. We're moving the states very, very successfully towards greater liberty. All of the states around us are moving headlong towards greater authoritarianism, and primarily progressive authoritarianism. We're the number one state in freedom, where we have number 47, Vermont, number 48, New Jersey, 50, New York. We have 41, number 41, Rhode Island. Massachusetts is a surprising 30. Maine is 34.
I'm very surprised Massachusetts is at 30. How did that happen?
Well, I think they actually allow a little bit more freedom in terms of personal types of activities, where which some of these other states really do clamp down on. Even though they're progressive, they're still authoritarian in terms of controlling people's bodies. But they certainly aren't all that particularly strong in terms of economics. They're certainly not as bad as Vermont or New York. So I guess it's relative.
Let me tell you a story about Vermont real quick, because as you knew, I grew up in Vermont. I lived in Vermont until I was almost 30, I think. Yeah, almost 30, because I bought my house when I was 29. And then I moved in like a month after my 30th birthday. So I lived in Vermont for most of my life. And this past week, I think there was a story that came out of Vermont, out of Randolph High School, which is a very small high school, where the girls at the school were a little upset that a person who was born male was changing in the girls' locker room. And they complained to the school. They said, we don't feel comfortable with this. And do you know what the school did? They kicked all the girls out of their own locker room. And the reason I bring up this story is I grew up one town over from that school. I grew up 10 minutes away from that school. And I was just like, man, Vermont has gone insane. I'm completely convinced that if I was a kid growing up in Vermont today, they totally would have tried to trans me in school. Absolutely. I'm convinced of it.
Well, it's so funny because we have these arguments all the time within the free state, because we do have people who are personally conservative and libertarian, and we have people who are personally progressive and libertarian. And the progressives and the conservatives, they're all fighting over what should be the one rule over the public schools. And of course, the libertarian solution is the only reasonable solution. Progressives, you go have your schools. Conservatives, you go have your schools. We have a range of different types of schools. And if you want to do weird things with your bathrooms, or you want to do traditional things, do it. Just tell the parents, let them choose, let the teachers choose what they want to offer, and we just allow people to be free. I don't understand how we're the ones who are weird and we're the ones who are hate-based when we say, no, you guys do what you want and you guys do what you want. How are we the weird ones?
I completely agree with you, and I've really come around to this point of view. Like, if people want to go create a little commie school in the commie utopia that is Vermont, where we will be building a moat on the border to keep them out, like I don't care if they do that, as long as they're not forcing me to go to Vermont and be a communist, or forcing other people to go to Vermont, and allowing people to leave if they would like to leave and move to New Hampshire, which of course would be the wisest decision that they could possibly make. But like, as long as no one's forcing anyone, go be communist. I don't really care.
But these guys, I don't know whether it's psychopathy or it's narcissism or it's just simple projection, but they cannot get it out of their heads that people are different. And libertarianism actually is this gigantic acceptance that humans are inherently different. And thus, what we need to do is accept that. We don't go trying to use violence, either personal or the state violence, to force everyone to be just like me. We just go, you guys want to do that? Go ahead, you do that, but do that over there. And you guys, you do that over there. And so, this group here, I don't think they hate us because they understand us. I think they hate us because we've just been so effective on removing laws that are getting in the way of freedom. And so they see this as really just a tactic. I mean, we would work with progressives quite happily. I do work with progressives. One of my areas is assisted suicide and euthanasia. I would personally like to be able to kill myself if I need to. I have cancer. That's a decision that's going to be coming up for me. And I don't want to be at the vagaries of the government. I don't want to be having to prove myself to some bureaucracy. I want to make my decision for my own body myself. And there's a lot of progressives who are kind of like, yeah, okay, but of course they always want some safeguards, and it's always going to be their people who are going to be doing the safeguards, which it's just not going to be. So I work with them, but generally the progressives will not work with liberty people, even though we have a lot of overlap, I think, in terms of, certainly in terms of body autonomy. We could talk about. We should be working very closely with that.
I mean, we could talk about too, like what Biden.
I used to think foreign interventionism, but I've given up on both of these people for that. They're headlong running to nuclear war. If all I can see.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and we've seen that with Biden today too. Like I think that most of us would, well, probably all of us would probably be pretty on board with pardoning like people who are in jail for possession of weed, or who have a conviction on their record for possession of weed. That should have happened in the first place. And so that's an area that we could work on, decriminalization or legalization. Like, I think there's a lot of overlap, and it really is just a shame that like some people in this movement won't even talk to free staters or libertarians because they perceive them to be just like the enemy. But it is what it is, I guess. We can't change their minds overnight, but we do have to pay attention to them, because they do perceive us as the enemy. So it's important that we know what they're saying and doing. Now, Dennis, you have put together a game for us tonight. Play, and people on my channel that watch regularly are very familiar with the game, because we play Unwoke bingo, we've played gender ideology bingo, and now we're playing progressive attack on the Free State Project bingo. Guys, if you want to generate your card, it is pinned to the top of the chat. I will also put the link in. I will put Dennis's tiny URL in again to make sure everyone can get their bingo card. But Dennis, you want to tell us about the game?
Sure. So, yes, we play progressive bingo. We've played it a couple times at the Shell, which is our Liberty Clubhouse here. We watch these attacks that they do on us, and we basically create these cards and have a lot of fun. There is a drinking component. I've brought my bourbon here. This is a very lovely Basil Hayden, because I'm a very snobbish bourbon drinker. But you can drink anything that you want, including a soda, and then you get to choose how much you want to engage in the drinking. But the general rules are this: if the speaker mentions any one of these terms, then you just exit out. If they mention it a second time, that's where your drink comes in. Okay.
Oh, this is different than how we play bingo.
Yes.
So, like, this is like upgraded version. So if they mention it again, you got to take a shot.
That's right. Now, Depending on how much you want to play the second part of this, you can go, well, you're not playing at all, just the middle row, right? If they say something on just the middle row, if the top and middle row, and I'm going to warn you guys, don't go much further than this, top, middle row, or bottom row. That's for you people who, you really aren't going to be working tomorrow.
So everyone get your progressive bingo card and get up and running with that. Just a couple more things before we get started for tonight. I do just want to do a quick plug because I don't usually do this on Fridays, but tomorrow on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have a special stream on the channel. Joshua's coming on to talk about invoking your inner psychic for Halloween. It's going to be a fun Friday stream. That's going to be at 1 p.m. I'm still working out happy hour. Dennis, I'm going to the Mises Caucus meat eating marathon tomorrow. I don't know. Will I see you there?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We're definitely going.
Yeah, so what's going on tomorrow, guys, is essentially if you're, I guess, interested in the Mises Caucus in New Hampshire, there is a meetup where there's going to be a lot of smoked meat and stuff like that. So I'm still working out my timing for happy hour tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit earlier in the day, probably, because I'm going to go eat some meat with Dennis and all the other people tomorrow evening. But at 1 p.m., we will be talking to Joshua on my main channel. So I hope to see some of you guys there for that. And the last thing I want to talk about before we get started is I want to talk about how Spy Stream works, because Spy Stream is a really specific type of stream, and we do have rules. Well, not really rules, but more just guidelines for how this works. Okay. On Spy Stream, we are watching a live presentation. We are going to be in a live Zoom that we are going to be streaming on the channel. That means we don't know what they're going to say. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't know if they know that we're watching them and streaming them. And most importantly for this, because this has actually happened before, sometimes the people who do the presentations about the Free State Project people, they don't let us in the Zoom room. They identify who we are and they prevent us from joining the meeting. If that happens, I don't think that's going to happen for this one, because they're working with UNH, which is a taxpayer-funded organization. They're also working with the police, taxpayer-funded. So I don't think that they can actually reasonably keep us out of this meeting, given that we are actually taxpayers in New Hampshire. It's like, it is what it is. But I just want to warn everyone that this has happened before, where these people have done webinars and I have had Zoom links to those webinars, and then they wouldn't let me join the effing webinar. I have signed up for the webinar under several different names. I have several different email addresses. I have several different Zoom accounts because I do this stuff fairly regularly. So I'm not doing it under my main name. No progressives. I'm not going to tell you what my fake name is. And so we're going to see how it works. But I just want to let everyone know that some of this is out of my control, and we're going to do the best we can. Number 2, we don't do commentary over the meeting while we're watching it. So Dennis and I are going to get quiet, but what we will do is type comments into the chat, and then if I have a comment about what they're saying, I'm going to display it on the screen. And this is because this is a live training, and we don't want to I can't rewind a Zoom call, right? So I really want to make sure that we're hearing what they're saying, but we do want to do commentary at the same time. So Dennis and I are going to be typing our comments into the chat, displaying them on the screen as we have them. If you have comments that you would like to make and they are witty and they amuse me, we can display those as well. So make sure you're adding your comments along as well, and we will be displaying those on the screen. Lastly, and thank you for the people who have already sent in some super chats on the channel. I do really appreciate it. All super chats will be displayed on the screen. We're given more than enough time for people to read them, but they will not be read out loud because, again, we don't want to talk over the stream. Dennis, all that makes sense?
Yes. The one thing that I want to say is that I urge all progressive authoritarians to do the super chats, spend money, and put your invective into the chat so that we can all see it.
I think so too. I really want to welcome all points of view here. If you love Free Staters, if you hate Free Staters, I definitely encourage, if you hate Free Staters, I encourage you to spend money on my channel and send me in like a nice $500 super chat so you can write a lot about why you hate Free Staters. If you send me in a $500 super chat about why you hate Free Staters, I will display that chat on the screen all night long. Okay, I'm fully committed to this. I believe in diversity of thought on my channel, and I welcome haters to super chat in and give me money.
We are, after all, capitalists, and we will support a capitalistic bidding system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more you hate us, the more money you should really spend. I think that this is basically like your progressive duty.
Well, it depends on how much hate there is, right? Yeah, if you have a lot of hate, we want to see a lot of dollars.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Dennis, I am waiting to be let into the Zoom room. I have opened up the Zoom room, but they haven't let people in yet, so I guess they're still getting going. We got about 8 minutes here. Now, let's just talk about drinking for a second. I have a Shock Top Twisted Pretzel. Now, I'm not usually a fan of like mass-produced beers, which Shock Top is, but I got to tell you guys, this Twisted Pretzel beer is like one of the best beers ever created in the history of beer. It really does taste like a pretzel. It's got like that nice, like it like salty, kind of like comforting taste to it. I'm a big fan of this. You should be able to find it really wherever they sell beer. Like you can find this stuff in the supermarket if you want, no matter. And Shock Top is a nationwide thing, so I definitely recommend if you think you don't like beer, give it a try. If you're intimidated by the craft beer store, give it a try. And Dennis, you're drinking some fancy schmancy bourbon.
I am, but I do want to give a little plug to Pratt Porter. My friends up north, they're opening up a bar. We went and visited them this weekend at the Fall Foliage tour. We did some apple pressing. We had about 25 people pressing apples. We made 18 to 22 gallons of apple cider, and then we had a gigantic bonfire. But they're building a bar, and they're going to have Pratt Porter, which I highly recommend. You can taste it also at Pork Fest, but come to the Free State and head north, and you can try some Pratt Porter too. But I am drinking today Basil Hayden, which is my preferred bourbon. If you would like to send me a bottle of this, I am always appreciative, especially if you would like me to come and talk to your progressive hate group. We actually tried to go on Monday. They had another type of meeting like this. And one of our people found out about it, and he went and visited. And of course, they talked about how the Free State Project was a hate group and that type of stuff. And he had already befriended like 20 progressive Democrats around him. And he got up, he said, "Look, I'm part of the Free State Project. I'm not a hateful person at all." And the other people are going, "Yeah, that's right." And it was so funny because, of course, the moderators wouldn't engage him and talk to him. We would be happy to have a discussion with them, side by side. We do debates all the time at the Shell. We love to do a debate with them, and over whatever topics they really want. I mean, we're open. At the end of this meeting, though, the cops actually came up to our guy and said, these guys would even talk to us before. They were kind of like palling around with us. Free Staters, we have a uneasy relationship with the cops, but I think that they appreciate us because we're not causing trouble. We're not causing any trouble. We're not burning anything down or anything like that. So they
Well,
we
I've
would
also
like to talk to them, but until so, I'm drinking.
I've also heard rumor that like if you have a Free Stater like bumper sticker on your car or something like that, or like a Pork Fest bumper sticker on your car, the cops are going to be more reticent to pull you over because they know that you know what your rights are, and they know they're not going to be able to get away with any shenanigans. And so it might actually be a good deterrent to have a Free Stater bumper sticker on your car. Is that true?
Yeah, all the people who are like recording police interactions nowadays, that really started heavily in the Free State. I remember coming up here in was it 2011 or 2000? Yeah, I think it was 2011, and Cop Block was really getting off the ground there, and the idea was, take recordings of these interactions so that you can have proof of what's going on. And we actually fought a court case that is now law of the land. Carla Garrick, I think she's still the chair of the Free State Project. She went all the way up to the whatever the level is right underneath the Supreme Court to fight for the right to record these things. So if you record an interaction and later that saves you from jail time because you have that recording, that's because of the Free State Project. We actually changed the national law here. So they know, we fought them on so many different things. especially when we feel our rights are being violated. So they do know about us, and they may not be particularly interested in bothering.
Excellent, excellent. And I did just change the background on the stream because this is like a libertarian stream, so it's got to rain gold when we're talking about libertarian matters, doesn't it?
Oh, I did want to mention also, there are a couple of words in there that are duplicated. You may think they are, but there's extremism and then ultra extreme. Those are two different terms. Don't double click those. There's also racism, and there's another word that's very close to racism. It was systemic racism. So,
Same
you
thing.
know, if you get a systemic racism, use that on systemic racism. But you can, if you get a systemic racism and you don't have that on your card, use it for racism.
Dennis
So it has, but
guys.
it has to be exact. It has to be exact. And if you start complaining about that in the chat, you need to do a shot.
No whining in the chat. If you whine in my chat, you will need to do a shot. That's the rule. I have a strict no whining rule on this channel, Dennis. I can't do it. I can't. All right, guys, we should have about 3 minutes left. They still have not opened up the meeting room as of yet, so we're going to cross our fingers that we get allowed in. But guys, please mount the like button on the channel. Please subscribe if you have not already. If you're here for the libertarian content, I do actually have a bunch of libertarian content on this channel. I do it every so often. I call it Libertarian Matters. I haven't done one in a while because, quite frankly, Dennis, I got burned out on libertarian stuff leading up to Reno, and then it was like, it was a little crazy, but there is still the Libertarian Party is as crazy as ever, but it is also in good hands. I think it's going to be okay. But there is other libertarian content on this channel, and of course I have Dennis on a frequent basis, as well as other free staters and people outside of New Hampshire on occasion as well. And so I do that content on occasion. I do all sorts of content, from psychics to woke stuff to Dennis, we're in. All right, guys. The Zoom meeting is open, so I'm going to pull up the Zoom meeting, and we're going to get this party started. Remember, shh. All right, hopefully this works. Let me see. Window, Zoom meeting. They've done something. They pulled up the. They just pulled up the chat. Okay, so it's not. We're not in the room yet, but they did open up the chat. And I do actually like to keep the chat open when we're doing these things, just to see what people say, just for the heck of it. Now I'm all nervous. I'm like, are they going to let us in? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? I think they will.
It would be so much more interesting if they just invited us. I don't understand why they don't.
Like, we're not going to be disruptive or anything.
No, I think the problem is that they look a little crazy next to us. So
we even talked about it today in our chat. We're like, no, we're not going to be disruptive. We're going to be perfectly fine. We're not going to spam their chat or anything like that. We're not going to be rude. We're just watching here. We're just learning. We're learning from the progressives. All right, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, it's amazing. They cannot say what it is that we believe. They just cannot say that. They do not know what it is that we believe. And they have to project it from an authoritarian paradigm. So it's so frustrating to us, because they keep on complaining about us, and we go, but that's not we. That's not that. You're not talking about us. You're talking about some figment of your imagination.
And, I think that's a really interesting point. Like, if you can't explain to someone what you think they believe in a way that they would agree with it, then you're being inauthentic. You're being disingenuous. I'm sorry. Like, if you are actually interested in having a serious conversation with someone about a difference of opinion or a difference of beliefs, you should be able to explain to that person what they believe in a way that they would agree with it. And if you can't do that, then that is not their legitimate belief, and you're just trying to distort what their belief is in order to win debate points. Am I wrong, Dennis?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And of course, this has nothing to do with getting better understanding, coming to agreement, helping society. This is about money and power and control. That is what this is about. And they will win by any means necessary. That is what they do. Their normal thing is just to smear people with racist, Nazi, fascist, transphobe, misogynist, everything like that. And it's just like, we're so tired of it. We're so ooh, something's happening, Carlin.
Is it happening?
Is that a
I
good
don't know.
sign or a bad sign?
I hope it is. It's
We're so used to it that we don't really actually pay attention to it anymore. So it doesn't really work on us. It does work on normies, though, which I'm sorry to say that's too bad. Here in New Hampshire, though, we're looking for people with a little bit stronger constitution that aren't scared away by being called names.
That's exactly right. Kevin from the internet says, I hope they mention me. I hope they mention you too, Kevin, and your amazing outfits.
And good looking makeup too.
I wonder if anyone is anyone else from the okay, I want to see. Okay, is anyone else watching this right now? Okay, Matthew, I see. Hang on. I'm looking in our chat to see if anyone else has been let in yet, essentially is what's going on. And no one else has. So, it's not just us. Now I'm getting worried, Dennis. It's 6:03.
Well, they're not particularly on time, so
They're
I don't
not
think
punctual.
that's something. No, I don't think that's an issue.
Wait, we're connecting. Shh. Okay, we're in. Hang on. I need to.
Welcome.
We're in.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you all. Thanks for your patience as we get organized and get started today. Please just remember when we're in the large group to stay muted. If you we just want to make sure we see your at least your first name. Love to see your faces if you're in a place where you're able to do that. And we welcome you. We're glad you're here. My name is Michelle Holt-Shannon. I'm the director and co-founder of New Hampshire Listens, and we are getting started in just a second. I'm going to pass it over to our opening remarks from Chief Richter. But just as folks are joining, just to give us a few more seconds to let folks settle in, please feel free to say hello in chat. We're going to be using chat today. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat bubble in the center. If you click on that, that should open up, and we welcome you saying hello, telling us what town you're zooming in from, and it's a nice way to say hi and to get us started. We'll be sharing a few prompts in chat as we go along. Since we're online, we're not giving you a handout guide, but we will we'll share some thoughts in chat as we go, and we'll plop the questions into chat so that if you forget what we were asking, you can go back to it. So hello everyone from Kittery and Portsmouth and Dover and Rochester, Brunswick, Maine. It's good to see you all. Somersworth. We have focused this event on the Seacoast region, but we have folks here from many places, and again, we welcome you. A part of this will be we'll hear from some speakers who can help us really think about what is our role when it comes to hate group activity in our communities. And we also want to give you a chance to connect locally to people who live near you, and for you to be able to think, what is something that you can do? What are some things that maybe are happening in your community that you didn't know about and can be a part of? So again, welcome, 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 welcome. And I am going to ask Chief Richter to kick us off and share a few words. You can, if you go up into the top right corner, you can have your view on gallery, in which you'll see the expanded Brady Bunch that we have here, for those of you who get that reference. And then you can also, if there's, when we're listening to a presenter, if you put it on speaker view, then the person who's talking is the person you would hear, or the person you would see in the center of your screen. So do what works for you, so you can see folks. And Chief Richter, I'm scanning for you to make sure we can get you here to say a few words to begin.
Thank you, Michelle. We're off to a good start because I actually have audio, video, and I haven't messed anything up yet. So I'm happy. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for sharing your valuable time with us and your neighbors to participate in tonight's discussion. This is such an important issue, as none of our communities are immune from the various acts of hate that we've seen of late in the news all over New England. I'd like to take a selfish moment for a second and thank Kittery resident Megan Dunn for originally inviting me to be part of this amazing group of individuals who've come together to serve all of our communities by helping understand and prevent hate-based activity. And thank you to all of the fellow forum members who I've had the great pleasure and have worked with over the last couple of months. Thank you all. Our goal this evening is to impart some useful information on hate-based activity, including what that looks like in our area and how we should respond to it. Our hope is that this forum stimulates further and ongoing discussions on how we can all of us together, help to keep our communities safe and welcoming for all. Again, thank you all for coming. I sincerely want to thank all the people I've been blessed to work with over the last couple of months on this project. And back to your facilitator for this evening, Michelle. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chief Richter. So I'm just going to share a little bit about how tonight's going to go. We had an in-person event on Monday where we had, I think there were easily 100 people in the room. I think we sort of eyeballed the number. And again, it was a chance for people to talk to each other, to learn a little bit about what's happening in our state and in our area, get some information, and then touch base with folks in their own communities. So we'll hear some presentations. The first thing that we're going to do is you'll have a chance to be in a group where you'll select the group that has your hometown in it. And that will just give you a chance to get an overview of what we'll be doing and some reminders of our group agreements. I'll share those as well. We are really focused on learning from our presenters, and then connecting locally in our communities. After our presenters, we'll have a chance to have Q&A, and really just sort of what are your remaining questions? What are the things that you heard? And we'll ask you to add your questions to chat. We'll pull from the chat and ask our presenters to comment. We'll do that for a period of time, and then we'll invite you into smaller groups where, again, you can join people from your own town and area and talk about what is yours to do in terms of your own role. You know, some of you, you're in different sectors. We might work closely with young children. There's all kinds of ways that we can plug in. Some communities have some initiatives underway Some communities might not, but they might hear of one that they really want to try and make happen. So we invite you to just dig into those conversations in ways that help you be a part of the conversation. All right. So one of the things I'd like to share in terms of media, we won't be recording any of the small group conversations. We ask that any media identify themselves, let us know who you are, and if you want to quote someone directly, just ask their permission. Any of the large group activity you can record and quote, that's fine. And but let us know if you have any questions. We just want to balance our participants' ability to sort of share an incomplete thought or share a story that's personal, and also be able to participate in those groups. So media, thanks for letting us know who you are. And if you want to rename yourselves and write media as part of your name, that would be one way to do that. I'm gonna put into chat our group agreements. And we have group agreements as a way to just sort of remind ourselves that we're going to work hard to try and understand each other and listen. One of the ones that I want to point out is that we won't use slurs even as examples. I know to some people, you might be sharing something that happened, but we'll ask that you hold back on using slurs. You can just talk in generalities enough so people can get the idea. Those can be really hurtful to folks. So we ask you to please do that. And just speak up if something doesn't seem fair. Please listen to each other, share the airtime. There'll be a period of time where when you're in small groups where your facilitator hasn't joined you yet, and we invite you just to start with introductions and make sure everyone gets the chance to speak. But at some point you will see a facilitator, they'll check in on you, make sure you're in good shape. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to ask Carrie to guide us in the first small group so that we can get some direction for the next steps, and then we'll come back. This will be a short small group gathering. Okay, shift it to Carrie.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Portray. I work with New Hampshire Listens. So what we're going to do is you're going to join a small group that you are going to self-select into by your community that you live in. We have created the small groups based on registrations. And so what I'll do is you will have a facilitator in that group. That facilitator will remind you of the community agreements that Michelle just read. They will also encourage you to rename yourself. So for instance, you can see that my name is New Hampshire Listens - Carrie. If I, as a participant, I would rename myself South Berwick, because that's where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that's going to do is that's going to help me group you later on after the panel presentations. So it's really helpful if you put your town at the beginning. It's going to make sure that I have enough small groups for everyone that's here so you can be with your community. But your facilitator will take you through that in these small groups. So what you're going to do is I'm going to open the small groups in a second. And you're going to join the group that has your community listed. We're hoping we got everybody. If not, just join any random group because it's the same directions. If you aren't sure of what to do or you haven't self-selected into a small group on Zoom before, you can hang back and Michelle and I'll help you along. You're going to have 10 minutes. And facilitators, remember, you're joining the group with your name in parentheses.
Do you want to go into Dover?
Dover? Okay, we'll go Dover.
So all participants can start joining the community, their community groups.
And you'll have to scroll down to see those.
See, the thing is, I don't want to give myself away.
And there's some larger groupings, for instance, like New Hampshire communities
Hang
outside
on.
the seacoast and
Stand
other
by.
states. So if that's
I'm
you,
still streaming.
go right into that one.
I just don't want them to see which one I am. I don't understand how this is working. Dover, 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 Dover. I don't understand how this
I'm sorry, I have no idea where I find the groups.
I have no idea
So
either,
when
Sue.
you're in- no worries. Thanks for speaking up
Hang on, I know
about
you guys
tech.
can probably hear.
So when you go down to the bottom of, when you look at the bottom of Zoom, there should be
Oh, I found it.
a 4 square that says breakout rooms, and you're gonna hit that selection, and then you should be able to, when you scroll all the way down to the bottom.
I always struggle because it's like I spend most of my awake and professional time in one place, but I have my bed in another place. So, so I opted to go.
No, folks, I'm still eating, so that's why I'm not showing myself. It's just
No worries. No worries. It's a-okay. You
I
do
got
not have to be on video. That is totally fine. Sorry, I'm going to leave a little more time. We still have about 40 people who haven't broken out to breakout groups yet. So I'm just going to leave a little more time for anybody else who might be a part of the Dover community to join up.
Can we be heard?
No.
So this is actually the group that I would belong to. I live in Dover, and we have several progressives that are
I'd say
right
we
down the
reached
street from
about
me.
critical mass here,
We're
so
gonna
I'm going to
get
go
in
ahead and get started.
trouble. They're not gonna
People
like
join
this.
in as we go, then that is a-okay. We'll make sure everybody gets the information they need to know. So hello, my name is Daniel. I am a facilitator from Dover, New Hampshire. And I welcome. I really appreciate everybody making the time to come out and learn about hate-based activity in our community and what we can do to sort of turn things around. So real quick, we're going to go through. There's a few things we have to get done in this larger group, and then we're going to have a panel of speakers come on. They're going to share some information with you about which hate groups are operating and the sort of police process that goes into investigating and categorizing hate crimes. And then we're going to break out into smaller, again, community-based groups, and we'll sort of open things up for discussion when we do that. There are a few things we're going to do right now in this group to make that a little easier. The first is renaming ourselves by community, which I can see pretty much everyone here has done. Yeah, you all know how to use the rename tool, which is great. If you feel like you would like to include your pronouns, that is definitely something you can do here. The one thing
do it.
would be helpful for
No, I can't. I
our
can't have
organizers
myself off
to
screen.
break us up into smaller facilitation groups is if you actually want to put Dover at the beginning of your name. It just makes it a little easier for Carrie to sort of see where people belong and see which groups they're going to go into.
I don't think pronouns was on
Okay,
the
real
bingo
quick,
card.
I know
No.
Michelle sent out the group agreements or the community agreements in the chat. I'm also just going to read those out loud
I
real
didn't
quick,
agree.
just so we know, just so
Saying
you've
that they're
heard
in
them out
agreement
loud.
does not mean I agree.
And again, this is a sort of space for conversation. We want to make sure that everybody knows the group
The
agreements.
essential point of consensualism.
And so here they are. The first, we're going to share airtime so that everyone has a chance to be heard.
We don't have
not
to
all
say a
of us,
thing.
Know a lot or have a lot to say about this, but some of us who might, let's just sort of pick carefully what we're going to say and make sure that we give people the opportunity to ask questions and to be heard themselves, so on and so forth. Michelle mentioned this one, but we're going to be respectful and use respectful language with an emphasis on we're not going to include slurs in any of our speech, even as examples. To some people, they could just be a word, but we're going to sort of play it safe here. And
You think they're going to use the
try
word
not to use
racist?
sort of offensive language while we're in the small group discussions. If you disagree, consider asking a question rather than arguing to prove your point.
Rita
This is kind
not
of a
making
space
an
for
appearance today.
open
I have a
discourse.
completely different name today.
And one of the things that helps us keep open discourse and keep respectful conversation is sort of engaging with people's ideas rather than just outright shutting them down. So yeah, asking questions and speaking more from personal experience than from what we might think to be.
Should I share the time that I was a
valid,
hate victim by a
absolute
progressive?
facts, which
Yes.
sometimes, the line is a little blurry there. It's okay to disagree with people. If someone says something that you disagree with, try not to personalize it. Focus on the idea.
We're almost 25 minutes into this now.
There's, obviously some gray space here. If something says something that, or if somebody says something that really makes you feel, reduced and like you're not being considered human, then that is sort of different than a disagreement. Which leads me into a quick point that I wanted to bring up with you guys. At any point in the small group conversations, if you find that there's not a facilitator in the room that you're in and you would like to have a facilitator in that room, there should be a button down in this bottom section of the Zoom window right next to reactions. I believe it's the raise a hand button. If you press that at any point in the small group discussion when there is not a facilitator in your group, we'll make sure to send a facilitator over real quick.
It's like they all work for the government.
At any point,
this is going on forever.
In your discussion, feel free to hit that button. You could also send me a message directly in the chat. If you open the chat box, you'll see there's an option to send someone a message directly, not just to the everybody category. If I get that message, I'll be sure to hop in that group as soon as possible. And again, that sort of goes into our next group agreement of speak up if the process doesn't seem fair. If you're noticing that someone is taking a lot of time and you don't feel you have the opportunity to be heard, then absolutely message a facilitator or press that hands up button.
Use up the entire 10 minutes with him
if you
talking.
feel comfortable doing so, just name that in the conversation and remind the others in your group of the group agreements. But again, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's what the facilitators are here for. Personal stories, anecdotes, personal opinions, these are things that stay in the small groups unless we all sort of agree or you talk specifically to the person whose story
have done it through a
opinion you want to share
taxpayer-funded
with the larger group.
organization.
This is just sort of
You are a taxpayer-funded
respecting other people's
organization.
privacy. So if someone brings up a
This is not
story
private.
or an
You are
opinion
streaming on the
that
internet
you think
right
you
now
want to bring to the
through
larger
a
group when we have time for
taxpayer-funded
that, and
organization.
just make sure you talk to that person or speak using sort of anonymous language.
Taxpayer-funded actually means something.
It is okay to put issues like race and class on the table. This is a multi-pronged issue with lots of nuance. And so naming what you think is an important intersection that relates, or an intersection,
Intersectionality.
for example, between,
I feel like I can talk over
race
this
in
because it's
Dover
completely
and,
unimportant.
Oh my God, I'm dying here.
and actions in Dover that have been committed by
All right, I think we have to start drinking.
He's
I think we do.
bring that up. This is a
Cheers,
space where
Dennis.
we want to acknowledge the sort of intersection and confuse it allness of something with this
Say
much
intersection
dimension
again.
to
Do
it.
it. Say intersection again.
We all share responsibility for making.
Why was that not on the bingo card?
I don't know.
So again, if
Gotta
you
learn from
feel
these things.
like there is sort of an unfair, lopsided conversation happening, please reach out to a facilitator, or please.
What
feel
about a
free
really
to
boring
remind everyone
conversation?
in your small group of
There are too
what
many
our group
rules.
agreants are.
I need a
And
visual.
last but not
I need a
least,
graphic.
let's just do our best to listen to each other. We all come from the same community, but we all have a vast wealth of different experiences. And I think it is very important that we all listen to each other and speak to each other's experience in a respectful way. So thank you guys very much. We have 5 seconds left, and we'll be back in the big group, and then we'll see you in small group discussions after the panel.
We didn't even hear anything in the group.
Thank God we did that in small group. That's the important part. It was small group.
All right. Let me get back up on the screen. We're back in the main window. Small group is over. That was it. God.
So I've actually had progressives kind of like yell
Welcome
and
back,
scream
everyone.
in the street.
I'd be a few more minutes before everybody drops back in.
That was
I
way
wonder if
too
I can talk
complicated.
about my feelings about that.
I have so many feelings about that. Yes.
Welcome.
That was just to articulate the rules that no one agreed to. If you want people to agree to the rules, you guys got to put it on the sign up screen when you sign up for the presentation on the taxpayer funded website that you have to go to register for the presentation. Nothing you guys
Welcome
are doing
back,
right
everyone.
now is
Hopefully
private.
you at least got to meet a few folks,
All
a
right.
few
We're
familiar
going to
faces.
shut up again and we're going to listen quietly.
I'm
and
going
chat in our
to
comments.
turn it over now to our presenters. We have
Yay!
folks from law enforcement, Granite State Progress, which has a hate watch program, and Reverend Heidi from the New Hampshire Council of Churches. So I'm hoping Michaela can put everybody's names in the chat so you know who's talking to you. And Zandra, I think you are having tech issues and that I am sharing your slides, but I think we're starting first with Rochelle.
Perfect. We're starting with me?
Rochelle Jones from
With me? Oh, I feel like that was different last time. So
no, was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think last time we went with the educational portion about the groups and then the police, and then we ended with Heidi.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Thank
we can
you.
do that.
Welcome. So as we get those slides up, hello to everyone. It is so exciting to have so many people join us tonight. And this group here is adding to nearly 100 individuals and community members who joined us on Monday night as well. So very, very excited to know that while it's challenging that we have to deal with some of the things that are happening in our community, it is extremely powerful to know that people are ready to come together and send a better message of love, acceptance, and community. So why are we here tonight? A couple of main reasons. Maine and New Hampshire have experienced increased hate-based activity in recent months. We are working between police departments and local community groups to address that hate-based activity. And we all know that hate only grows when it goes unchallenged. So together, we can make sure every community member feels safe, welcomed, and valued. For tonight, we have 4 main goals. Learn how to identify the symbols associated with hate or extremist groups. Be aware of groups active in our area. Hear how activity in our area compares regionally and nationally. And identify actions that you can take if you encounter hate group literature or activity. Some of that will come through our small group discussions as well. So let's start with the first one about growth in extremism and hate groups, who they are and what we know about them in our region. So first off, I want to say that we took a lot of these materials from the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Anti-Defamation League.
That's the SPLC. I think that counts.
That work to help track the growth of hate and extremist activities.
If you have SPLC.
And we also release reports like this one from the Southern Poverty Law Center that identifies hate groups that are active in each state.
Everyone has to drink.
Every year, between 6 to 10 hate groups are identified for New Hampshire, and then there are additional groups identified for Maine. NSC 131, or the National Socialist Club, is the one that most communities have been dealing with lately. This is the group that has been tagging, flyering, and hosting visibilities in Seacoast communities, but also in some other areas within Maine and New Hampshire. Next slide, please. The National Social Club NSC or 131 crew, which is the alphanumeric code for ACA or Anti-Communist Action, is a neo-Nazi group with a small autonomous regional chapters in the United States and abroad. They see themselves as soldiers at war with a hostile Jewish-controlled system that is deliberately plotting the extinction of the white race. And they seek to form an underground network of white men who are willing to fight against their perceived enemies through localized direct actions. They espouse racism, anti-Semitism, and intolerance via the internet, propaganda distributions, and the use of graffiti. Here's one of the logos that they use that you can see displayed there as well. They participate in localized flash demonstrations, counter protests, and make appearances at mainstream events. They also engage in schemes to troll or otherwise harass those who oppose them. And we do have some brave local business owners who were the recent target of some of those attacks after they stood up to hate in their communities. This is an image from some of the tagging that they did down in the southern tier of New Hampshire, the Nashua area, in a predominantly diverse Latino neighborhood. And the post here is from Representative Manny Esmedia speaking out against these activities in his community. And you'll see in this next slide that they particularly, NSC 131 particularly likes to target leaders of color, community members of color who speak out in protection of their community. And on this particular instance, they talked about the Representative Esmedia had no right to be here. He's an occupier. Luckily, this particular representative is a very strong leader in our community. And so while this was concerning, has not slowed down at all in his advocacy for a Granite State that includes all of us. And that's the kind of leadership that we hope that community leaders throughout Maine and New Hampshire will continue to demonstrate. Some of the other activities from NSC 131, these are just a few other images of things that they have done around the region. They do, these flash mobs they do tend to do a lot of them at night, where they can take pictures or photos of activities they're doing and then put them on social media. It's important to know that this actually isn't that big of a group for how active they are in the region. There are only a couple of members from Maine and New Hampshire. They pull from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, really acting as a regional group. But their intent is to harass and intimidate communities. So they do activities to try and make it look like they're bigger than they are, more robust. So the bad news is they're here. The good news is they haven't grown that much. And our goal is to help make sure that through community education and conversations that we don't allow them to further radicalize individuals who may be susceptible to participating. 3%ers are also active in the region. 3%ers are a little different than some of the other groups that we're naming tonight. They act as part of the militia movement, but not necessarily as a closely held group. Somebody may be a member of the group, may identify as a 3%er, but not necessarily be a part of a local chapter. They support the idea that a small number of dedicated patriots are protecting Americans from government tyranny, just as the patriots of the American Revolution protected early Americans from British tyranny. This concept was created in 2008, and the 3% is based off an inaccurate historical claim that only 3% of the Americans fought in the Revolutionary War against the British. So again, you can see them really setting themselves up as the true line patriots. Patriot Front is a white supremacist group whose members maintain that their ancestors conquered America and bequeathed it to them and no one else. They justify their ideology of hate and tolerance under the guise of preserving the ethnic and cultural origins of its members' European ancestors. And they also spread hateful propaganda via the internet and by distributing banners, flyers, posters, and stickers. Since 2019, Patriot Front has been responsible for the vast majority of white supremacist propaganda distributed in the United States. They are one of the nation's most visible white supremacist groups, and they also participate in localized flash demonstrations across the nation. While they claim to be loyal to America as a nation, Patriot Front seeks to form a new state, one that advocates for the descendants of its creators, according to them, which would be white men. And those images are some images from New Hampshire, some of the tagging that they had done around the region as well. Oath keepers. Oath keepers claim to be defending the US Constitution and fighting tyranny, but as their former spokesperson described, the group is actually selling the revolution. They believe that the threats to American liberties, oops, sorry, last slide. They believe that it's their responsibility to keep the Constitution and American liberties in check. In reality, they are often selling a set of baseless conspiracy theories. And this group is particularly concerning because as part of their mission, they have really directed their recruiting efforts toward recruiting members in military, law enforcement, and other public safety positions. Next slide. They're often confrontational, and they have participated in armed standoffs against the government. There were Oath Keepers who were at the insurrection at the US Capitol on January 6th, and members of its group, including its leader, who people may have been reading about in the news, were arrested and accused of conspiring to oppose the presidential transfer of power by force. There's a really great New Hampshire Public Radio story about Oath Keepers. And a watchdog group in the last year was able to get a list of membership of Oath Keepers and has released it to journalists. And this is the story that developed from that. There are nearly 300 New Hampshire names in the Oath Keepers database, including a sitting state senator and some members of law enforcement. So this is a particularly important area for us to pay attention to. It's also one where we can safeguard in some of our policies and hiring practices about making sure that individuals are not associated with extremist groups like this. Proud Boys. So this is a picture of a Downville, New Hampshire town meeting. You can see the Proud Boys in the back. I think many people have heard about the Proud Boys because of the Capitol 6 riots, January 6 riots in DC, but they are active in the region and they're very noticeable with their black shirts and yellow logo and stand out in a crowd. Proud Boys are part of a right-wing extremist group with a violent agenda. They are primarily misogynistic, Islamophobic, transphobic, and anti-immigration. Some members espouse white supremacist and anti-Semitic ideologies or engage with white supremacist groups. They frequently wear those black and yellow colors and tactical vests. And Proud Boys accounted for one of the highest number of extremist arrestees in relation to the January 6th insurrection. In 2021, Proud Boys really latched on to anti-mask and anti-vaccine activism, showing up at school board meetings as well as protests and rallies. So again, that image from earlier as at a local town meeting. They represent an unconventional strain of American right-wing extremism in that their members represent a range of ethnic backgrounds, and their leaders vehemently oppose any allegations of racism. And they actually went so far as to sue the Southern Poverty Law Center for defamation when they designated the Proud Boys a hate group. But their activities and their involvement speaks for itself. The New England Minutemen. This is an image in front of the New Hampshire State House of this Boogaloo group recruiting for members. You can see some of the imagery they used, that igloo, locally, that the antlers symbol, which is for the New England Minutemen specifically, and then the Tea Party symbol. So Boogaloo is code for Second Civil War, also referenced as the Bouge, Bigagaloo, or Boujadine. The name comes from a cult classic movie, Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo. The symbols, in addition to the igloos and other things, include Hawaiian shirts and heavily armed individuals, often in other military gear. Their members are known as the Boogaloo Boys, and they share anti-government, anti-law enforcement, and pro-gun messages. Some Boogaloo groups are also trained militias and intend to operate as one. And the New England Minutemen definitely falls into this category. We have videos of them training, doing firearms training, tactical training, combat medic, other things in the mountains around New Hampshire and Maine. Southern Poverty Law Center describes it as a hate group whose mission is the Second Civil War. In early 2020, the Tech Transparency Project did a study about how many Facebook groups were devoted to the Boogaloo, and they noted that more than 60% of the groups were created in the first 3 months of COVID-19 public health orders and quarantines. So extremist groups like this were using either the angst of COVID or the cover of COVID to do more out loud recruiting. So the flyers, in front of the State House in New Hampshire, right out there in the open on the street, or using dissatisfaction over public health orders to try to recruit more members for their cause. And we do know that some Boogaloo supporters have either committed or attempted to commit acts of violence offline, including a chilling story from Texas about a Boogaloo member who did a Facebook Live hunt of a police officer, where they turned on Facebook Live and said they were gonna find a police officer to murder, and thankfully that individual was apprehended before that happened. Boogaloo members from the New England Minutemen were also arrested outside a Black Lives Matter rally in upstate New York in 2020. And in the van, in addition to firearms and ammunition, they found a tactical manual for the New England Minutemen. All Boogaloo groups are agitating for civil war, and some of them are promoting white supremacy. Along with the Proud Boys, these two types of groups act mostly as accelerationists, where they're encouraging people to use rallies to commit further violence against Black Americans, to incite a race war, and to create angst and division within our community to further their own purposes. And Grant State Progress actually documented local Boogaloo members in response to the murder of George Floyd, talking about wild times in Minneapolis and anyone getting on the fun. And is this the moment we've been waiting for, where they were trying to use some of that, community strife for their own ends. And these are some of the images that we captured of that social media content from prominent Boogaloo members in the state. There has been some national reporting about these groups that they're using, whether it's COVID, public health, or Black Lives Matter rallies or other things, to try to create more division and to target certain community members and arm more individuals. I'll go ahead and click through a couple of these. These are also some Boogaloo recruitment materials. Often when we do these presentations, people ask, how are people being recruited to these groups? This is some social media content that they distributed on their social media channels, just encouraging folks to participate in them in any form or fashion that they could. Some other groups active in the state. So the Free State Project is a group specifically in the New Hampshire area that is trying to move 20,000 libertarians to the state to take over and dismantle state government. And they have had an impact on policies such as sponsoring the statewide ban on an honest education that makes it harder for teachers to have honest conversations with students about racism, sexism, ableism, and other things that, our kids need to learn the history and the lived experiences of all community members in order to learn from the mistakes of the past to build a better future. So those are the types of policy impacts that they had, but they've also attracted really unsavory characters. And this is the crying Nazi Chris Cantwell, who was very involved in the Free State Project in their early years, is one of the few individuals who's actually ever been kind of excommunicated from the group. But it came years after he had already showed that he had a tendency for racism and violence. And a couple of years after, his dissolution with Free State Project, he actually showed up in the national media at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where white supremacy was on blatant display, and became known as the Crying Nazi for some of his involvement there. I'll leave it to folks to look up a little bit more about that particular story later. But these are some of the types of individuals who were instrumental in the Free State Project during its launch in the state. Other hate and extremist groups. QAnon, which does a lot of conspiracy theories, baseless theories. This is an image from Market Square within the last couple of years of a rally that they did down there. So there are some other kind of fringe groups that operate and pop up from time to time that we're keeping our eye on, and that we have concerns about the real world impacts of some of the claims that they're making and the ways that they're targeting particular community members. So how to take action. So there's a few things, know the symbols affiliated with hate or extremist groups. Document activities and report them to police and community organizations like Grant State Progress. We always recommend that people do both. One, the police for any kind of law enforcement, community protection, public safety issues that need to be addressed, and then community organizations like Grant State Progress, so we can track who these individuals are, where they're moving in our communities, and help provide either rapid response community events or support impacted community members, but also keep a public track record in a way that, that law enforcement is not always able to share back out with the wider community. It's really important that we reach out to impacted community members to show support. If we know these things are happening and we're talking about it, but we're not working directly with those most impacted, then we're not really doing enough. And we need to make sure that those community members feel that support from their community. And then we need to consider public policy changes such as local ordinances or hiring practices that can guard against extremist infiltration into institutions, but other things of this nature, coming together as a community, and we'll have a couple examples at the end, to really show what our communities actually do support and how we move forward together, because we are all in this together. And I will pause there and we'll go to law enforcement and then come back to some of those community action ideas.
All right, so I'm Detective Rochelle Jones. I'm with the Portsmouth Police Department. I've been here for 20 years. I just had my 20th anniversary. I am also a native of Portsmouth. And so my main job really is to build relationships with the community. And I do a lot of public education and safety trainings and things like that. But I work with everyone from little preschoolers all the way to our seniors. And just trying to help. We go to community meetings and do things like, especially like this, where the community sees an issue and just wants to collaborate and learn more about it, and just kind of educate on what the police role is in situations like this. So let me just get my PowerPoint up here. I have way too many things. Just give me 1 minute. Which is good to kind of just take in everything that we've just been talking about. It's a lot.
Rochelle, do you have access to share?
Yep, I do. And I'm just going to click in my sound to make sure I get the sound going.
Okay.
All right, and here we go. So our presentation is that everybody can see that, right? Zero tolerance to hate crime awareness. And so what is a hate crime? So sometimes it's kind of confusing because people will say, well, it's a hate crime. And for New Hampshire and a lot of other departments, there has to have been an actual crime that was motivated and based on some sort of bias. And that would equal a hate crime. And that's just the simplest way to kind of put it and to show everybody. So some common laws we might see involving hate crimes would have to be something like an assault or reckless conduct, criminal threatening. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be a threat. Sometimes, we'll see things that we don't like and we feel threatened by, but we're going to talk about what the law actually says and defines a threat as. Disorderly conduct, that could be many things. Disorderly conduct in New Hampshire can be too many people standing on the sidewalk, obstructing your ability to use the sidewalk, obstructing a car's ability to drive in the street because there's a crowd of people standing there. It can be things that are said. It can be interruptions of, public forums. It can be many things, town hall meetings, right? Sexual assault, interference with freedom. Those can be those intimidating moments when maybe you're trying to leave and walk away from somebody and they put their arm out and are kind of restraining you like you're not going anywhere, and trying to block your movement. Obstructing government administration. That could be, I'm going to call the police. Like, you're harassing me. I don't feel safe. You go to get your phone out and somebody prevents you from calling the police. Like, that would be a crime. If that was motivated by these bias that we're talking about, there would be an enhanced penalty for that crime. Criminal mischief. That is your, swastika spray painting on something, keying somebody's car, like egging somebody's house, right? And then that in itself will be criminal mischief. And why were they doing that? And we have to be able to prove that it was because, they are hateful towards this person's race, they're hateful towards this person's gender identity. Criminal trespass, right? Coming on somebody's property and dropping pamphlets all over the property without somebody's permission, private property. We still need to find and identify a suspect before we can bring charges of that, right? And make sure that they did not have any right to be on somebody's property. Harassment, right? Harassment, same thing, like calling, harassing, hanging up the phone, following you around, yelling at you over and over, those types of things. Very, very broad, right? What was it motivated by? Criminal defamation, that's your slander. That's going online and saying untrue things about you in the company of your peers. Stalking. Somebody doesn't like you because of these reasons that we're going to talk about. They're showing up where you are. They're stalking you online. Somebody commits a crime against one of your animals to try and get to you. Some very heinous things have happened. Littering, right? That could be another thing. Propaganda being thrown around, or flyers and things like that. Again, dropped all over private property. Like, that's littering. You're putting stuff, on the ground. You can't do that, right? So this is the law on just criminal penalties. So like I said, we have an enhanced penalty. You have to have a crime, and then in New Hampshire, there's an enhancement if it can be proven that that crime was substantially motivated and committed because of someone's hostility towards the victim's religion, race, creed, sexual orientation, national origin, or sex. And penalties can be increased. Again, somebody's misogynist, hates women, you know what I mean? And that's what motivated them to assault somebody. And the defendant has to be notified of that possibility of an enhanced penalty when they're at trial. So we do have a couple videos. They are short, right? But just so you're not hearing me talk to you the whole entire time, why do so many hate crimes go underreported?
It didn't take long for a federal jury to find Ahmaud Arbery's killers guilty of hate crimes, but convictions on federal hate crimes are rare in Georgia. In fact, nationwide, a great many hate crimes are never reported to police. A warning, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing. Here's our Why Guy.
From vicious attacks delivered with words of hate to threatening messages left on churches and homes, the ugliness of hate crimes is hard to ignore when we know about them. But a great many never come to our attention. That's according to a Department of Justice report that says between 2015 and 2019, the overwhelming majority of hate crimes were violent, and yet nearly half of the victims of those attacks didn't go to the police. Let's examine why. With the help of the U.S. Census Bureau, the Department of Justice questioned thousands of crime victims. Many who believed they were the victims of hate crimes told the DOJ they didn't think it was important and didn't want to bother police. Georgia State University criminology professor Dr. Thaddeus Johnson tells us some don't even realize they're the victims of a hate crime.
People in our country are so marginalized. They live through these things daily, and it's such a common part of life. And because of that, you kind of downplay the seriousness of it.
Dr. Johnson says hate crime victims often fear retaliation if they go to the police.
If you're a new immigrant in our nation, you may fear that it may jeopardize your status.
Many hate crime victims told the DOJ they handled the matter through someone other than the police, like an apartment manager or school administrator. Emory political science professor Andra Gillespie says when police are called, they may not always ask the right questions.
They might not be able to glean that there was an element of, racial or religious or gender animus that was involved.
A small percentage of hate crime victims told the Department of Justice they didn't report a violent attack to police because they didn't want to get the offender in trouble.
So things go very underreported, and that's in New Hampshire too. I know in Portsmouth, we had 2 incidents that we know of this past year. I will show you a graph and some statistics of New Hampshire, but again, a lot of things go underreported, or it goes reported to another agency or is handled somehow by the person that it happened to in another way. Some people are not comfortable going to the police. There sometimes are not a lot of other alternatives if you want to enforce a crime, but there's either the federal route to go or the state route to go. And then again, we can do both sometimes, but just additional recommendations if something does happen. Write down any and all of the details of the crimes as soon as possible after the incident, whatever you can think of. You never know what might help in an investigation. Consider safely sharing your information with your community and even sometimes the press. The reason why I say that is you don't usually hear police say, oh, go tell the press, but if it's somebody that we can't find, if we are not able to get a suspect or hold somebody accountable for what's happened, let your community know. And the more you talk about it, the more awareness it's going to bring, and people will look out for those things. And also the press can do public service announcements, for people to be aware of those things, and it's educational. Just make sure also that you seek some support, and local, national, and coalitions are out there for those anti-violence programs as well. Does it happen here? I do safety trainings all the time, and this picture, it's disheartening. And yeah, it does. Things are in our own backyards. This is at the Seacoast Repertory Theater, and there was a demonstration there, and we were there, and we talked ahead of time with people from Seacoast Rep, and then we talk after, and we offer safety trainings. And what can we do? We try to collaborate. Our job as the police department is a difficult balance. We're not allowed to have our own personal opinions in there, but we know that when our community is upset by something, we need to join in and support and acknowledge our community, but we are bound by what we're allowed to do by law, and we do have to serve and protect, and we have to protect everybody's constitutional rights, whether we agree with them or not. And it's very similar sometimes to political, like we protect no matter who the president is. That's what happens. And also, so when we look at things like these flyers, I just want to, look, this can be disheartening. People's opinions can say, this makes me unsafe, makes me upset. But when we have to read through the words, and we have to determine, are the words alone something that is a criminal threatening? But where it's found could also be a crime or an ordinance, right? Littering. So just federal laws and statutes, the Department of Justice enforces, they have another set of laws. So you have your state ones, and then you have federal ones. Federal hate crime laws cover certain crimes committed on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. And the Department of Justice began prosecuting federal hate crimes after the enactment of the Civil Rights, and that began in 1968. I like to show this because sometimes, and you'll see later in the presentation, that some states do not include all of those just descriptions that I just gave of what would make something a hate crime in their local statutes. We do in New Hampshire, but I will show you how it differentiates. So the federal government will have a separate law just so that they can enforce things if those states cannot. Like we would not enforce, if you look with the right to housing, like we don't have a separate statute for that in the state of New Hampshire. But if somebody, if it was a crime to threaten, use force, interfere, so if somebody interfered with somebody's housing rights because of their race, color, religion, sex, disability, family status, and national origin, then that is a crime within itself on a federal level. So the people that would be enforcing that and that would be interviewing and taking that case would be the FBI. But we don't have anything on our state books to deal with that, if that makes sense. And then just like violence interfere with, federally protected rights. What if somebody's traveling and, you know, the airline is preventing them from being able to travel, you know, because somebody has a racial issue or, you know, or religious issue with them, they're being biased. You know, what would that crime be on a state level? You know, I can't really think about one, you know, unless there was actually a threat, but just them and themselves interfering, you know, that would be something investigated by the FBI. And they saw that and said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Then they would be charged federally. So the Matthew Shepard, that was also something that came up in 2009. That's a pretty famous one. And then there were some ones when we saw a lot of rise in Asian hate crimes. And so they had just announced, like in 2021, like an opposition to hate assault threats to Equality Act, because they really wanted to go after those in a timely manner. So there are separate federal statutes. And our states, when we get any reports of hate crimes or hate associated crimes, then those are reported federally. Federal bias categories included by state. So this is what I'm talking about, why sometimes there's federal crimes in addition to state laws. So if you look at down here, it says, you know, the black little circle is a yes, but if you look at Alabama, so their hate crime statutes do not include sexual orientation, gender, sex, gender identity. So if somebody committed a hate crime, you know, it would have to be because of the person's race. It would have to be because of their national origin. But if the person said, you know, they came after me because I was gay, they assaulted me, because that's not on Alabama's state law. So they'd have to go federal with that. And that's why that federal law is there, just as that, you know, security blanket, just that backup. But if you look at Maine, you know, I guess they're not including gender identity. Chief, change that. But in New Hampshire, we have all of those in all of our laws. And what exactly is a criminal threat, right? We hear threats all the time. Why aren't you doing something? And again, we have to look at the totality of the circumstances when we're investigating a hate crime, just like any other crime that we would. But this is a huge definition, right, of what is a criminal threat. But it's basically a person is guilty of criminal threatening when, by physical conduct, purposely places or attempts to place another in fear of imminent bodily injury or physical contact. Or, so imminent means immediate. It means that a reasonable person would believe that you were in immediate danger by somebody else, right? And that could be by words, that could be by action, places any object or graffiti on the property of a person with the purpose to coerce, terrorize any person, right? And again, it depends on whose property they put that on. What is that connection? Somebody says, yes, like I am Jewish and they put this swastika on my lawn. Absolutely. You know, if it was somebody else that's like, I have no idea why this here, maybe they put this on the wrong lawn. We don't know in itself, but it's a totality of those circumstances. And you can look this up if you're from New Hampshire. You look at the laws, their revised statute annotated, but you can just Google criminal threatening and it's going to show you all these things. Threaten to commit a crime against a person with the purpose to terrorize them. You know, threaten to commit any act of violence by delivery of chemical substance. What if somebody sends you, we call it analog. They send you white powder and say it's, you know, something dangerous, right? That can still be considered criminal threatening and a crime. So, and again, it just talks about like the different levels. Like there's misdemeanor levels, which means that up to 1 year in jail. There's felony levels up to 7 to 12. You know, it depends on, that's like where you might have an instance where somebody is threatening you verbally, but also has access or is holding a gun, right? That's really going to up that. And that's just very, very plain. There's so many different, you know, just examples. We could go on all day, right, with the what ifs, but I'm just trying to give you some basic scratch the surface knowledge, and hopefully that explains it. But reported hate crimes in New Hampshire, and again, these are the reported ones, not the convicted ones, but in 2000 to 2019 by bias motivation, right? And you can see in green is disability, in yellow is sexual orientation, in red is religion, and in blue is race and ethnicity. So in 2000, you can just kind of see the different numbers. And, you know, it really looks like for race and ethnicity in 2004 and 2008 were very high. It does seem to be going down a little bit, you know. We didn't see a lot by bias of disability in like the last quite a few years until like 2016 and, you know, 2018, 2019. The FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program, they're always a couple of years behind to gather this data, but this, you know, this is good visually just to kind of take a look at. And what are we seeing? And that's all in New Hampshire. So this is another Just statistics here. This was for 2020. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing, what kind of hate crimes are we seeing? We're seeing crimes against persons. So in 2020, there was 13. Again, these are reported, right? Crimes against property, there was 11. And then what was the bias, that motivated this? And 9 of those were, race and ethnicity, 4 were religion, 4 were sexual orientation. It doesn't decipher if you can have more than one in one crime, right? Motivating one crime. You can not like somebody's religion and their race, or their disability and their gender, right? That can be many reasons for that. And then you can see in 2018, 2019, and then it goes up to 2020, and that's provided by the Department of Justice in New Hampshire. And anything in here, I definitely would advise you to go and do your research as well. So just another video, but just kind of articulating, what do you do if you are the victim of a hate crime? What do we do? So those are just some things to do. There's some other actions, sometimes that we don't think about or people don't know about. So you may believe that you're the victim of a hate crime, and what if the officer comes and they're not really familiar with that, right? Because sometimes we tend to just, as unbiased as we try to be, it may not cross our mind that somebody did this for another reason. We're just going, okay, there's criminal mischief, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, I've been having trouble with my neighbor. They've said these slurs to me in the past. That's things that we need to know so that we can articulate that that's what that might have been motivated by. But also, what if we, it's not enough that rises to the level of us to even arrest somebody? We can do things like trespass notices. We can do those on private property, and we can do those on public property, right? And that's just a form. New Hampshire also, a lot of different agencies have them. And it's not something that you're going to have to go to court over or anything like that. But if it's your private property and you don't want somebody there, you can say, we'd like to do a trespass notice. We do it for businesses as well. And then we'll sign that notice. We'll serve the person with it. Hey, they don't want you on their property. Okay. And then that's it. They can't come back for a year. If they do, then they're going to be arrested. Stalking petitions. Usually people think about stalking based on romantic relationships, but complete strangers can start following you around. What if somebody's stalking you in order to harass you, right? They want to be kind of sneaky about it, and they're just going to start showing up at the gym, and they're going to start showing up where you work, in places that you never saw this person before, and they really have no reason to be there. Start consistently showing up where you are and causing you alarm. You can go to the court and you can apply for a stalking petition. Civil restraining orders, right? There's no relationship, no familial or romantic relationship. You can get a civil restraining order through the Superior Court in New Hampshire. I'm sure it's pretty similar in a lot of other places. And domestic violence protection orders, right? There can be circumstances where somebody may have dated somebody, been in a romantic relationship, was a roommate, lived in a household of somebody, and maybe did not know what their race was, did not know what their religion was, and found that out after and was hateful towards them. And that was a motivation to start harassing them or doing things. And that could be domestic violence related, right? So that's a whole nother order of protection that you can get through the criminal court. Again, the more information, the better for the investigator to put these things together. And then it was already spoken about in the last PowerPoint, enact town ordinances. Everybody did that when COVID happened, right? Durham did that to enact their mask ordinance. Maybe you can get together with city council, and if there's certain things that are not completely unreasonable, but absolutely need to happen, those can be enacted, right? And then those can be enforced through law enforcement. So you have that say. what else are the police doing, right? We're not just reactionary. I can't speak for every department, but I know that we are not, and hopefully other ones are not, right? So we're out there trying to educate the community about these things, trying to build relationships with the community so that they feel comfortable coming to us. I've done some of my own self-education through the library, and Ann Romney's in here, standing up to racism and just learning, keeping ourselves informed. We have education for police officers. There's classes and trainings on how to investigate hate crimes. That we get sent to, and unbiased training so that we try not to see things in that negative way, right? Safety awareness trainings. I do a lot of personal safety trainings for our community, attending community meetings. That's how this started, community outreach initiatives, right? We're going into schools. We do things like Cops and Kids. We talk to kids, right? That social emotional learning and about bullying. And we're talking about inclusion at young ages, really based on behavior. Sometimes we go and do mediation for children that are calling out each other racial names and things. Like, the people will call us and we'll come to try and help out with those things. Anonymous reporting. I'll show at the end, there's a slide for Crime Stoppers, Seacoast Crime Stoppers. You're not comfortable with somebody knowing your identity, right? What if there's retaliation? Then we do that. We also have a civil rights officer here. If you believe, or you had an officer that mistreated you, and you believe that was because of a hate bias, right? Working in partnership and pre-event planning. So if there's going to be some sort of demonstration downtown, we will talk with organizers. It doesn't matter what side you're on, whatever you're protesting, like people have that First Amendment, but we educate people on what the rules are. Also being careful if there's two different sides, educating both sides on what not to do to get themselves in trouble. These types of things are emotional and traumatic, and it will maybe cause you to do something that you normally wouldn't do, if it didn't hit you where it hurt so bad. And we do understand that, right? Hate is unwelcome here. Andrea, she's on this as well, and she created these stickers, and they're in businesses and they're here at our department, and it's just a way. What can you do, right? Like, she was one of those people that's like, I need to do something, and she created these and gave these out. To just share that collectiveness about that's not what we want in our community. And just remember, a few things to remember, especially if you're reporting something, or even if you're not, always trust your gut instinct. It's there for a reason, your intuition, right? If you feel like something's off, if you feel like you didn't get the response that you should have from police, like, keep telling people until you do get that support. When in doubt, call the police, or an alternative. A lot of people call family members when something happens first. Never feel embarrassed if you are the victim of a crime, right? Because you're not weak or stupid. Criminals don't discriminate. In some of these cases, absolutely, they probably do, right? Because we're talking about hate-based, but just, and anybody can be a threat. Like, don't downplay things when they happen to you. Well, they just said it once, and maybe that's not a big deal. Even if you don't want to pursue charges, you have the ability to have something documented. Again, you never know what's going to help out. You never know if somebody escalates, and now we can go back and look at these reports. We have a saying, if you didn't tell us, it didn't happen, right? So at least we can document things too. And you just know that somebody else knows, and that's there for you to go back and get if you need to. And these are just some resources. You have 911, obviously. Dispatch, this is for our Portsmouth area, but you can call the FBI. They also have a tip line if you want to report things, report hate crimes. The ACLU, they're a great resource. And Haven as well, any type of assault, sexual assault, domestic violence, those things related to hate or not, like, they are wonderful advocates. This is Seacoast Crime Stoppers. There's a 207 number and 431-1199, and there's also the 603. You get a live police officer every time. We don't use the call center, so that way, if you do have questions about crimes, they should be able to answer those for you. It's completely anonymous. There's also an app for that. You can go to Crime Stoppers online. You can download the app, to your Apple phone, to your Samsung or whatever, or you can just make the tip online. You can also upload photos. If you're comfortable taking a photo, you're safe taking a photo. Don't try and do anything that you're not safe doing. But if you are able to take photographs, you can attach that. You can attach social media links and all those things. So, and I think we're doing questions later, right? Yeah. And just thank you. Stay safe. That's my information, and I'm happy to help you however I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Detective Jones. I really appreciate you sharing this information. Reverend Heidi is going to be our last speaker in the panel, and then we'll cover some of the good questions that are happening in chat. So, Reverend Heidi.
Thanks, Michelle. Can I ask you to put back up that last slide for me on Xander's presentation?
Yes.
And friends, as that's happening, I'm just going to invite us to take a good deep breath. That was a lot of really good and wonderful information. So just breathe it in for a moment. And as you do, I'm going to invite you just to check in with yourself. I suspect that many of us came here tonight in part because maybe some part of you was worried or a little bit scared about things you've heard or things you've seen happening in your community. So just check in with yourself, maybe a little bit worried or a little bit scared. Me too. That's a piece of why we put this event together. And we're in a time when hate activity is on the rise and things feel maybe a little more precarious than they have felt before. And I think it can be easy to feel like our responses don't really matter, or maybe they don't make a difference. But I also am going to ask you to check in with yourself around this question. Maybe you came tonight because you believe in our collective capacity to change the story or to make a new narrative. That's a part of why I came tonight, and I hope it's a part of why some of you did too. One of the goals of hate groups or hate activity is to drive us to feel a little bit of despair, to believe that our collective voices can't change the tide. But the good news is that they can. I suspect you probably know that because tonight you are here. I'm going to draw on the words of activist Mariame Kaba, who says that hope is a discipline. It is a thing we have to practice. It's kind of muscle we have to build. And even if you came here tonight and you didn't know that's what you were doing, by being here, you are practicing hope. You are equipping yourself with information and in a spirit of collective action. Hope is gritty and persistent that way. So to that end, we wanted to leave you at the end of this presentation with a few examples of how neighboring communities here on the Seacoast and across Maine and New Hampshire have responded in solidarity, in community, and in hope. You heard Rochelle talk about, and you saw some photos of an action at the Seacoast Repertory Theater earlier this year, speaking out against and protesting their drag queen story hour. But what you didn't see were the photos a week later of the community showing up in huge numbers with signs of love and words of hope to support those who came for the next story hour. In Nashua recently, when white supremacist groups distributed anti-immigrant flyers and stickers with white supremacist messaging, almost overnight, members of the community came together to form Hate Has No Home Here. And on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, they filled the park. You saw on the last slide from Granite State Progress these beautiful yellow signs in Concord. These are a group called Love Your Neighbor Concord. And in response to a number of things happening in the community, a group of neighbors got together and said, how do we make our neighborhood a place grounded in love? How do we communicate to others that this is a place where all are welcome? And they came up with these signs that say, love your neighbor. Those signs and that messaging have persisted now for so long that when these folks still show up at events, you feel the collective of hope and, oh good, the love your neighbor folks are here to stand with us. Recently in the faith sphere, we have seen an uptick in both Maine and New Hampshire in anti-Semitic graffiti and anti-Semitic communication across the state. Recently in Goffstown, shortly before the Jewish High Holy Days, anti-Semitic graffiti showed up in that community. And on a very short turnaround, the Goffstown Clergy Association, led by my colleague, the Reverend Jason Wells, communicated to the media and to their neighbors that that had no place in their community. You get the idea. And I suspect that you could offer examples of your own. There are some themes developing here: community, solidarity, and the real understanding that none of us do this work alone. So as you go into some discussion time tonight, as you head out into your own communities, here are a few things that you might do too. Speak out. At a rally, in a letter to the editor, in an op-ed, on social media, in your community spaces, you get the idea. Speak out, talk about it. Organize in your local area to be able to respond quickly in love and in community when something happens. Often people will ask me, I want to show up to a meeting or I want to show up to a space, but I'm not sure it'll make a difference if I feel too afraid to talk out loud. And your presence matters, even if that is all you bring to a space. That too is a gift, and it matters in the work. Reach in to your own networks and reach out to build connection. Build a vocally committed community around you and have these conversations wherever you are. Have them in coffee shops, have them in your congregations, have them among your family, but have these conversations and move the work forward. And I'm going to close with this. It's one of my favorite quotes from William Sloane Coffin. The world is too dangerous for anything but truth and too small for anything but love. Thanks, friends. Let's go have some conversation.
Thank you so much, Heidi. That was beautiful and inspiring, and a great reminder to us why we come together for things like this, why we get informed, and why we want to know how we can be a part of the good things, the love your neighbor activity in our communities. So I'm going to ask our text app to pin Heidi and Xandra and Rochelle. Just for the next few minutes, we're going to try and get to some of the questions that have come up. But really, I think in this moment, you've heard from our speakers. Is there a remaining question that's on your mind? And we'll ask that you add those to chat, and we'll try and field a few of those. I will go back to a few. One is just sort of that, like, in a couple of different questions. What's the thing that tips it to being something actionable by police? And so one of the ways that was asked was explain what's criminal about pamphlets, what constitutes littering, when literature is left, when people say untrue things, drawing on property. So a few of those things, if maybe Rochelle or even Chief Richter can comment on that.
I say, get him, Chief. I did a lot of talking.
Your motor never stops, though, Rochelle.
No, hey.
Going. So in going through the chat and looking at some of these questions that came up, I think the difference between, if I read this question right, about pamphlets is the littering portion was when they were just throwing these pamphlets all over people's front lawns. That's the difference between throwing them out there and sticking a pamphlet on a door hanger, like some other organizations would do. I hope that's the question, because that's the answer I'm given. Trying to look at some of these others here, Michelle.
Yeah, but I'm trying to find Xandra, but I haven't found her yet to pin her. But if you speak up, oh, there she is. All right. So one of the other questions was, yeah, so I saw the comment about being proactive. We're definitely going to talk about that more so in our groups as well. Can you talk about the hate speech and hate activity, even if it's not criminal? And what are some of the things that can be done?
Michelle, I'm happy to take a first run at that question, and friends, other panel friends, chime in if you'd like. Terry, I really appreciate the question about, how is or hate speech harmful or hate activity harmful, even when it's not criminal? Because the reality is, even if it doesn't tip that scale, people are harmed. It brings harm to our communities. It brings harm to individuals. And so it's really important that we're doing this work to build our skills and build strong communities to speak out, even if a criminal statute is not activated there. Something being criminal and something being harmful are not always the same thing.
Thank you.
Right, and I would just add to that and say it's hard sometimes to do these forums in the police officer role because, we have to talk about something being a crime. That doesn't negate how detrimental that is to people. That doesn't mean that we don't understand the emotional toll that takes. We absolutely, it's trauma. A lot of us are trauma informed investigators as well. It hurts. It hurts to be discriminated against. It hurts to be called names. It hurts when it can't be immediately addressed. It hurts when it's sneaky. It's absolutely. So other ways that we deal with it is a lot of times, especially in my job, is finding, the underlying issue with that. Why is this happening? What is going on with the person that they feel like they have to say this? And it also explaining, sometimes it's educational. And I'll just say, for instance, a long time ago, people were referred to as colored people, and now it's person of color, so once in a while, it might be something ignorant and not making excuses, but there are different age groups, and then making sure that once somebody is educated and then knowing that, okay, well, that is on purpose now because you do know better, right? So there's just a lot of different points because a lot of times we want to include, we talked about this in the in-person one where we talked about inclusion with people. We don't want to, segregate, it's like we're trying to understand, we're trying to deal with this with love. I think Reverend Heidi really talked about that too, because we want to be careful not to ostracize and do further segregation, but we do understand how much that hurts. And believe me, I personally understand.
Thank you. There's a question about the governor's office in New Hampshire being involved in stepping up enforcement or responding in other ways to this increased presence. Can someone comment about that?
So I know in New Hampshire that the governor created a task force, especially it was around the time of George Floyd, but he has a civil rights task force and going around and doing that was a lot of it was mostly towards our police force, really about unbiasedness and things like that. But they did come out with I can't read all of it, but there is I can speak for New Hampshire and just say that there was a memorandum that came out in 2019. That's the protocols for identifying, investigating, and reporting hate crimes and civil rights violations. And it's a new protocol that went down to all of New Hampshire law enforcement, just completely spelling out, what constitutes that, what to do when it happens, how to collaborate, how to report it. There's actually a checklist in there and a supplemental form. It's pretty much like how to investigate these things for dummies so that it doesn't fall through the cracks anymore. And there's no excuse on how not to investigate these things. So they are trying.
Right. So one more question, and then we'll do small groups, and we'll come back to the large group to close out. If you are concerned that it's police who are involved in racially biased actions, what's your recourse? What are some things that you can do?
I would say we're not really there yet in New Hampshire, just with having alternative reporting. In California, there's different advocates and things like that, but that's what I would do. I mean, I just said, hey, we have a civil rights officer, but if you're not comfortable talking to the police, how are you even going to trust? If you believe there's corruption, how are you going to trust that the police are going to actually investigate an officer that might have behaved that way? Or, a lot of people just aren't comfortable talking to us. I would say, there's other agencies out there that you can report things to that can then advocate for you through us. Whether that's, through like the ACLU, like we talked about, even other people in the community, like, that can come and make sure that that gets reported. The FBI is another agency. Like, I mean, that also is law enforcement, but I think like the best bet would be the ACLU. And then I think, just some of the other organizations that can probably speak to that are on this forum, that can help you work through that and get it reported so that it's documented and you're heard.
All right, thank you.
Chief
All
Richter, I
right,
think.
so we are going to go into small groups, and I'm watching the chat. I see that there's a few folks who are definitely interested in talking about the Free State Project. I'm going to host that group. I'm going to ask Carrie to open the small groups. First, we're going to post into chat some guidance for your groups. There's basically a facilitator or a planning group member in every group at this point, so there's no need for facilitators to move around. Just stick with your group and help them have the conversation. I just want to get into chat the prompts for the conversation, and then we'll invite you into small groups. So I'm not seeing those posted yet. So
Michelle?
Yes.
I'm seeing, I do see the requests to join Michelle in the Free State group. So if you receive a request to join a room, but you want to join the Free State group, stay in the main room and I'll move you around. Okay. Sound good?
All right. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
And there's prompts in chat for your conversation.
And facilitators, I know we said you're going to bounce around, but it's worked out where you can stay in the room that I've placed you in, and panelists and partners, you are also in rooms.
Can we stay in the Free State group?
Conversation. Feel free to come back into the main room and talk.
Yeah,
to
we're
us
going to
as
stay in the Free
needed.
State group.
So Carrie, when we have a few more folks who go where they want to go, how will you do it? Will you add a room?
I added the room already. I just have to shift people around. That's all.
Okay.
It's
okay, I see.
It's an easy move. It just whoever's left and wants to join you.
Okay.
You'll all move into that group.
Yeah.
How considerate.
And as a
of them to create
host,
whole group for
Michelle,
us.
you should be able to just join the group.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. So folks who some people may have stepped away for a moment. You definitely invite you to join the group you're invited into. If you're interested,
Can you raise your hand?
in the group discussing
I've
the
said
Free
it in the
State
chat.
Project,
Oh, good.
Carrie will assign you, and we can have that conversation.
I want to find out how they just
So,
lump us
Carrie,
in.
I'm moving you. Jill and Bob, I'm moving. Oops, I moved Jill and Bob by mistake. Okay.
Join. I might have to reshare. Hang on.
Oh my God.
Jill and Bob seem like very nice people.
They do.
They do. Perhaps they would like to join the Free State Project.
These are not the people who yelled at me.
Excellent. Well, that's progress.
Does it say how many people are in our room?
Not many. 2. There's 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just us and they.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there's more. Okay, there's more. Excellent. Good. Oh, there's
Hi.
Steve Dass. There's Steve Dass. Steve
Right,
Dass
I
is
don't
here.
know who else is going to join
Oh, it's
us.
basically Steve, us, and the 2 moderators.
Alex and Carrie, are you willing to come on camera? And is your name Steven Dover? I think I met you on Monday. So this is all the crew who, this is the group who's gonna have a conversation about the Free State Project. Yeah, okay, that's totally fine. Feel free to use chat if you
I want to have a discussion with these guys.
One of the things
Yeah,
that
we should invite them to a
want
discussion.
to emphasize is
cover. I can
that
chat in.
we're going to talk one at a time. I'm your facilitator. My goal is to make sure you each get a chance to speak if you'd like to speak. And if anyone wants to introduce themselves, I would like to facilitate that happening as well. Alex, are you media? Tori?
He's not. He's not. I know him.
Not Alex. Okay. And is your name Steven? Steve,
Yeah.
okay, I see it. I'm gonna give you a chance to speak, but not for very long because we don't have a lot of time. So I need you to be succinct about what you feel your group stands for. And then I want people to be able to ask questions or comment as well. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You want me to talk now?
Sure.
Not a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here representing the Free State Project. The Free State Project is a nonprofit organization with a goal of getting 20,000 libertarians to move to New Hampshire. We're definitely not a hate group. I attended the live version of this event on Monday. I find it very telling that they actually omitted a lot of the slides that they had about the free from Monday's presentation to today's. I think maybe Zandro is feeling a bit of regret about putting us up there. You know, I'd love to see evidence of us being a hate group. If you go to the Free State Project website at fsp.org, you can see exactly what we're all about. We don't hide anything. Feel free to check out our calendar there. We have lots of events, potlucks, social events, comedy nights, all sorts of stuff. You're welcome to check out that calendar, come to any of our events and see for yourself whether or not you think we're a hate group. It actually says explicitly in our pledge for the Free State Project that we don't tolerate bigotry and racism and all that stuff. So
we should get rid of that.
Stephen. And so can you, the one thing that was mentioned, and to be honest, I was multitasking this time, so I don't know if it got mentioned this time or not, was that it wasn't so much the Free State Project, but that one of the other groups were.
Why are we lumped in then?
Free State Project. Do you
yeah,
want to
I guess I can
comment on that?
comment on that. It's kind of a silly thing. So you're referring to the Boogaloo movement, which by my understanding is really just a meme and not really an organized group. I believe there are lots of organized, like small militia type groups throughout the country, I guess. But the Boogaloo group themselves, like, I don't even know how you would make them security for an event. I think they just show up to any event where they're welcome and present. And if they open carry guns, I think they just try to keep things peaceful. Yeah, but to my knowledge, there's no formal ties between Boogaloo people and Free State Project people. There might be crossover, but the Free State Project is 9,000 people. Yeah, they're not really equivalent. Boogaloo movement is like, I think people need to do more research into what it is, because it's really like LARPers and memers. It's not really a hate group either, a threat to anybody, as far as I know.
Boogaloo
Okay.
movement is for
So
progressives. They're on the left.
you're not certain, or you don't necessarily believe that the
I
other groups are hate groups, or just that particular one. Did we freeze? I think we're frozen. Does
we
anyone
lost-
else have questions?
Boogaloo group is a hate group. I would like to see, I might have been losing connection here. I don't know if you can hear me, but
you
I'd love
did.
to
If
hear
you can
who
start
the
over,
Boogaloo.
that'd be great.
Sorry, I would love to hear. I'm not on here to defend the Boogaloo people, but yeah, I would love to hear who the Free State Project hates and who the Boogaloo people hate, if they're a hate group. And it seems very disingenuous to me to list off like actual hate groups like neo-Nazis and then be like, and also the Free State Project, as though there's any comparison as well. And then also bringing up, and I don't want to rant, but like bringing up Christopher Cantwell, the crying Nazi, who's the one person the Free State Project has kicked out because he's a Nazi. And like,
yeah,
we had one person in all of our ranks that we discovered was like an actual like, person that should be expelled, and so we expelled him. And last I heard, he's in prison for being a violent Nazi. So,
okay, all right. Does anyone else have a question or a comment that they want to share? You can.
I had a quick question. Oh yeah, just real quick. So yeah, I'm not a Free Stater. I've been to several Free State events, and yeah, the people there honestly seemed the opposite of hate to me. They were very nice and kind of were libertarians. But my question is, I never saw any is there any left-wing hate groups? Because I never saw any mention. So like for one example, would Antifa
Good point.
be considered a left-wing hate or a hate group?
Time.
I think when I have looked at what people have put out there, and I'm not an expert on this, it'd be a great thing to ask Xandra.
Yeah.
The other hate groups that I
Why
see,
isn't
and I don't
Xandra
think they
in
can be called left wing, but there are some Black nationalist groups that are listed as hate groups, and there are.
Antifa is.
I haven't
right?
seen Antifa
BLM
on
is.
anything. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
why?
they exist. I just I guess I'm curious about that too.
have any of you guys seen Proud Boys in New Hampshire? Because I've been to a number of protests, like Black Lives Matter ones, and Pride and stuff like that, and I have not seen Antifa nor Proud Boys. I haven't seen either of them.
Yeah.
These groups seem like there's like 5 or 6 guys max, but that's just my impression. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Xandra would agree that and Rochelle, that these groups are regional, so they're bigger regionally, and that locally
So what the fuck are we talking about?
spread out or smaller numbers relatively.
Why are we having a 2-hour presentation?
Other
Yeah.
questions or comments?
The only large group is the Free State Project. So
Yeah.
why are we lumped in with this?
Comment.
Yeah, who was that? Was that Alex?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
He's a Free
So
Stater.
I attended years ago an event in Boston, and it was a protest that was counter-protested. The police showed up, and there was a line separating the one group from the other. And one thing that struck me as particularly relevant is the fact that both sides had megaphones and were yelling at each other. But if one listened closely to what was being yelled, it was actually personal beefs that people had with one another. It wasn't like ideological. The ideology was really a mask for something deeper, right? This is an interpersonal problem between individuals. And I think that to the extent we can consider people individuals, we should, because every individual is unique and complex.
I love Alex.
I think that grouping people together, you lose a lot of the nuance. That's all for now.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's in some ways what you're saying is, hate groups hate people as in a group. They're hating.
The only hate group was Granite State Progress. That's the only hate group we had on here.
People
We don't hate anyone
who aren't Christian or whatever the kind of the piece is they're doing exactly what you're.
And my
the
only point
opposite
is
they're
that
hating the group, right?
my only point is that it's the group hate is a facade. Like if you dig into their soul, it's not about groups. It's individuals. Right. So that's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Alex. Other folks?
Hi, Jill from Rochester. I'm curious, Stephen, what the goal. I know you stated your goal is to have 20,000 libertarians.
Ooh,
move to
invite
New
him to.
Hampshire, and I'd like to know what that goal means to accomplish.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So the goal is get 20,000 people. They don't. You don't have to necessarily use the word libertarian because I don't think they would all describe themselves as that. But the goal is to get 20,000 people to move to New Hampshire in order to reduce the size of government. And the 20,000 people are supposed to be people that believe that the practical size of the government should only be to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So basically, what that actually entails is people getting involved either in direct action or more often in political action.
Thank you.
I would love to invite Jill to one of our meetups in Rochester.
So I'll say, you know, one thing as someone who was part of the planning group, and the groups that people were responding to, for the most part, isn't the Free State project, Stephen.
Can I ask you a question?
And I think that I guess I'm interested in sort of when how great does an association get, and like pulling back from the Christopher, I think was really important to do. And it probably gets your group sort of pulled in and out of being perceived, you know, in that way. And so standing up for it, continue to talk about it, and also internally making sure that your group isn't becoming that. In a way, that's something we were all responsible to with the groups that we're a part of.
Why are you
right?
concerned
Like we
that
all
they're
have to make
becoming
sure they don't tip to being, you know, a nefarious group.
Like Granite State Progress.
So I took the risk of creating this space. If it were one of the other groups, those groups have a little clearer line to me. I probably wouldn't have done that. We might have been in a different space there. But I just kind of want to name the tension and the messiness of that.
I can appreciate that. Why do you think that Zandra included us in the presentation? Because I know on Monday there were significantly more slides about the Free State Project, and now it's reduced. But why do you think she included us in here with the other organizations?
Yeah,
smeared us.
Ask her. They have a.
We know why.
Tell us.
Watch process, and I think based on what she shared, it was the security of the other group, and the guy you kicked out.
Yeah, I mean, he's been kicked out for years, but
it or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. If I could postulate why I think she included us.
And our rooms are going to close, just so you know.
Okay, I'll be quick and direct. But my belief is that she works for Granite State Progress, which paid for her to move to New Hampshire in order to combat.
Oh, they froze him.
They're frozen.
Oh! Zandra's in control.
Yeah, he cut out. Why are we ending early?
Yeah, why are we ending early? We have 12
the
minutes
timer
left.
was wrong. The whole thing ends at 8.
There's 10 minutes left.
Okay, is there going to be breakout rooms for like after hours chat? because I think Nashua Jeff had a question about limited government in churches.
If the goal is limited government, how did the list of churches arise for what the list will? Yeah, that's a great question.
Can we make time for that?
After we end, yes.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Jill, are you trying to communicate? Wait, you're
They're
on
kicking us
mute,
out. 5, 4, 3.
and we're about to
2,
be
1.
whisked away.
I wanted.
We're kicked out of the breakout room.
Oh, we lost Jill.
I'm not sure.
Sandra is such a fucking coward,
I'm not
isn't
sure how
she?
that works after the fact, but
She
we
is a
can
coward.
see. Okay, great.
God. We're back. Good on Nas, man. Nas did a good job.
Hi, Heidi.
I wonder if the
hearing you on
pastor will
Sunday.
come and talk
Hey,
with us.
Kelly, great to see you.
Hi, it's Jill and Bob from Rochester. In our breakout room, Stephen was about to say something and then he froze, and we were interested to hear the rest of what he was going to say.
We are interested
That's
as
gonna
well.
get. We'll go into that
Jill and Bob.
after if folks want to stay after Jill. I apologize for running out of time.
I'm so glad we went in the room. That was very
Just
considerate.
as a way of bringing us back together, I appreciate Sarah talking about the connections that are being made. Would love to,
I would like
if
Xandra
folks
to
want
say
to add
and
in
explain
chat,
herself.
if there was
Yeah.
an idea,
I want an apology from her.
an
I'm gonna chat that in.
initiative that you're seeing that you appreciate or you hope is part of something that happens in your own community. Please feel free to share some of those ideas and make some connections. One of the things that we are going to do is people have signed up sharing their hometown. And so we're gonna write to you and give you the opt out, and you can say, do you want
No
to be
shit, Kurt,
connected
really?
to local
Is Sandra in the
local
Podesta
groups?
Wiki
And
stuff?
we'll do that in a way that
Oh, put in there that they should
I
contact
have the
us
details right now, but we'll do it in a way that it's easy for you to opt out, and we're not going
if they'd like to meet some free staters, or they want free staters to talk with
But
them.
we'll share with you the resources from that community.
That's hilarious, Kurt.
Taking a pictures in chat. There's a resource from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Challenges of finding out what's happening in your community. Ways to communicate with each other. Create courageous community conversations. Your libraries are great places to bring people together for
I love Kurt. I
conversation.
love Kevin.
That's a
So
great,
many good people in the Free State Project.
great resource.
And then to have them smeared like this.
And
unfortunately, on my third bourbon, it starts to irritate me.
All
I
right.
hope Xandra says afterwards.
Thank you.
I would
Thank
love
you for
her
being
to come
here,
and
for
talk with us.
taking the time to learn more and to meet your neighbors.
Of course, she has
There
no
are a few
intention
people who
whatsoever.
are want to stay after and continue a conversation from one of the groups. And I will host that for a little bit, not too long, but we'll go for a little while.
Excellent.
I appreciate your presence here and any work that you do to connect people in your communities and give people an opportunity to be a part of communities that are safe and welcoming, and helping our country reach the ideals that we have and the aspirations that we have for liberty and justice for all. So thank you very much for being here. And I will create a quick small group for the facilitators debrief, and we'll do a little multitasking here as we close. But thank you all very, very much. And thanks again to our presenters.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you all too.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Carrie and Bruce, can y'all do a debrief in a breakout room with our facilitators, and I will join you soon.
I thought we were gonna keep
So I
going.
created 2 breakout rooms. One's called facilitators and one's called with Michelle. And so I'm gonna open the rooms up for how many minutes do you want to do, Michelle? What's our timing for this?
Yeah, let's do 15.
15, okay. And so you're gonna join, if you were a facilitator tonight, with our group, you can join the facilitator group, and then folks who want to continue the conversation, you can join Michelle. And Bruce, if you want to kick that off, that's great. I'll stay in the main room, just to make sure everyone's shown into a spot.
Yep, will do.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I really was expecting the guy who yelled at me to be on this.
Let's go in with Michelle, I guess.
And if you're not sure how to join, I can place you in a group, so no worries.
Carrie, could you please place us in the group that is going to have the Free State part that didn't get to finish?
Yep. All
Thank
right.
you.
That's Jill and Bob. Oh wait, hold on. I'm having a time catch.
All right. Hang on. We're going to the other room. That's there we go. All right. There we go.
I wonder if she would host us. Tara.
I will be right back. I'm just going to check and see.
I wonder. That's a good question.
I'm talking about the UNH woman. I mean, she hosted somebody just to smear us. I wonder if she would be good enough to host somebody to allow us to talk.
That's a good question, Dennis. I mean, she seems to be very nice. Like,
yeah, she seems to be open.
Michelle, again, we have about 10 or 15 minutes. Jill, you were asking for Stephen to be able to finish his thought. I see that there's some folks who are with us now that weren't with us before. We really were having a conversation about the Free State Project.
Yes.
With some folks who are part of the Free State Project and folks who had chosen to be in this group. So if that is
I think given that she hosted
right
something
place.
that was slanderous, intentionally so, and she was unwitting, would she be willing to host something that allowed us to talk?
it would be the fair and balanced thing to do.
Stephen, you were saying something and you had cut out, and then we ran out of time.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what I was saying. I think who I was, I'd asked you why you thought the Free State Project was included amongst these hate groups.
Non-existent hate groups.
It seems like feeling the room out, it seemed to be a lot of sentiment that we're not quite hate group. I mean, I certainly feel that way. And then I was going to say why I thought, and I'd be curious if anybody agrees with me. And I like that I'm in the chat here now with a couple of our members of the police force. Because I don't know if they can comment on this, but I'd be curious to hear if they think we're a hate group as well. Because I think they probably met a lot of us before. But I wanted to say that the reason why I think we got listed in tonight's function, and same with the one on Monday, is because Granite State Progress wants to push against rivals of the Democratic Party and rivals of their political people. And I think that they wanted to use this as a tactic, which I think is pretty dirty
Sleazy
to do. But I think that the only reason we were put up there was as a political tactic. They thought they could throw us out there as a hate group up with neo-Nazis, which obviously we don't support that kind of bigotry. I think they thought that that would be a useful tool for them. And I think it's very telling that the meeting on Monday had a lot more slides about the Free State Project, and somehow tonight's presentation, they cut that down significantly. I think that's very telling.
Can I just answer Steve's question? I just want to say, hi Steve, I met you on Monday. I just want to say what I know about.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Michelle?
What's that?
I don't want to be rude, and I don't want to be rude to anybody else, but apparently town is falling apart here. I'm in my office.
Okay, bye, chief. Go get
So I
him.
gotta take off. I didn't want to.
Thank you for your time.
But I gotta go. But thank you, and thank you, Rochelle. Nice.
You're welcome, chief. I was just gonna say, all I know about your group is what I seen on your website and what I saw in the forum, but I also, I want to stay and just do my due diligence to listen to you because I listen to everybody else on this. And so that's why I'm here, is just to learn.
Sure. I appreciate that.
So you don't consider them a hate group?
That's right.
Anyone else on the
Good
call have a question or you know, and we don't have anyone from GSP on here, so it's really
Of course not, because they're cowards.
Conversation, y'all can pursue that with them.
They want to smear and run away.
That's
all they do.
So, Stephen from Free State Project. So you
Yeah.
say you don't think that the Free State Project endorses bigotry?
No, we explicitly don't endorse bigotry. If you go to our website, it's explicitly on our website.
All right. So the Free State Project is pro-queer.
Pro-queer, can you define what pro-queer is? Because that sounds like an action. You know, endorsing bigotry is an action that is saying we're not doing, and saying pro-queer also sounds like an
All right.
action.
So do you
Does that make
harbor
sense?
do you harbor any resentments or biases against queer or trans people?
Do I? No.
Yeah. Be honest about that.
I don't care if people are trans, queer, whatever. Does not bother me at all.
And that's very true of Stephen,
There were
by the way.
books in elementary school that had characters in them who were trans or queer or black or brown. You
I could not care less. I could not care less.
you wouldn't have- all right, cool. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
I'm not I would consider myself like a cis male. I went to Portsmouth Pride, watched the presentations, whatever, like it's fine. Yeah. Where the Free State Project is 9,000 people, approximately. It's really hard to count us because libertarians don't like being on lists for one reason or another. But but we're an extremely diverse group. Like you've got everything from like gay nudists to conservative.
I know some of them.
You know, like we've got everything. All that
I know some of them.
together is that we want more freedom. We want smaller government. You know, we're peaceful. I would say
that's the key.
We believe a lot in responsibility and you know, that kind of thing, and respecting each other. We believe in the non-aggression principle for the most part.
But you're also bound together, unfortunately, by the fact that your organization was founded by a Nazi. Is that incorrect?
That is incorrect.
The gentleman,
Nazi?
in the presentation earlier, did not have anything to do. He was not a founding member of the Free State Project.
He was not a founding member. He was one of many participants.
He was a dipshit from the get-go.
I moved to New Hampshire in 2017, and I believe by that point he was already out of New Hampshire. I've never met him.
I met him on his first day
my
here.
Understanding is that
And he was rejected
he
almost
moved here early in the Free State Project days. He definitely was not a founding member. I'm not sure. We like consider like people a mover number, whatever. Like you're the 5th mover, right? You're the 1,000th mover if you like get on that list or whatever. But so I'm not sure what his mover number would be, but I can tell you he did not run anything in the Free State Project, was not on the board. We're a nonprofit, so he was not on the board. My understanding was he was always fairly loose on being a libertarian and being a small government person, and that over time he got worse. And when people realized he was a Nazi, he was the Free State Project board voted to expel him from the movement. And he's to date, I believe, the only person that's had that happen to him. And as far as I know, he moved to like Washington or somewhere and got arrested for being violent, and he can rot in prison for all I care. I've never met him.
So our time's limited. Paige had a question, and then I think Bob.
Founded by a
Well,
Nazi.
it's amused when you
That's
said-
what that guy got.
Tori, and then Bob.
I was amused when you said that you didn't like being on lists, because really my first full awareness and the place where I started digging was when my church showed up on a list, you know, that your group put out. And right.
So it's not quite correct. So it's not quite correct.
Thank you for that. So somebody who claimed to be associated with your group created a list that was called woke churches. You know, and when I looked at the criteria for wokeness, it seemed to include things like, you know, concerned about racial justice issues, concerned about affirming, concerned about Ukraine, concerned about masks. You know, there's sort of a whole variety of things, but it wasn't 100% clear how you made the list. You know, in the end, First Parish was actually pretty excited. Oh yeah, we'll claim that, but it's not a name we would use about ourselves. You know, like that, we wouldn't claim that. And we were like, well, why did they feel the need to create this list? You know, and it seemed like it was a negative thing to be on the list. So that kind of was, I think that's when I started digging into what is this group? Why are they putting our church on a list? You know, what's the intention of the list?
Yeah, so my understand, I haven't read the list because I'm not religious myself, but my understanding was that one individual, I'm not actually sure who made it, but one individual within the Free State Project made that list because we tried to provide, well, the Free State Project is very decentralized. So it's like people will say we should do this, and then other people say, yes, you should do that. And then that's how things get done. It's not top down. So my understanding is one individual said, I would like to help people move here, decide which churches they should go to, because they had looked around the state, and I believe that, you know, they had a lot of time, like for example, the town I'm in right now has 2 Baptist churches within a mile of each other. It's like, how do you know which one to go to? So they wanted to make some sort of list that clarified which ones were what they considered woke, because I believe that they didn't want to go to those churches.
So why didn't they
I
just
think
make a
there's
list of
also a
churches
list for synagogues. That's the same thing.
Right. And so why didn't they make a list of churches that were consistent with the values rather than a list of bad churches?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
If I can jump in, if I can jump in, I didn't make the list, but the Free State Project has people moving to the state every single day, and people want to get information now that they've uprooted their lives and moved to New Hampshire. They want to know, where are the churches, where are the community centers, where are you know, activities, et cetera, et cetera. And the wiki, the purpose of it is to document that. Now, the thing is that the whole reason for the list already existed. It's just that somebody added a column to the list that said whether it was woke or based, and I put the link in the chat. Now, to your point, Reverend Page, you asked about being consistent with Christian values, and I think that's the point. The whole point of listing whether they support Ukraine, whether they are big into pride, etc., is a defining aspect of Christianity. So to the extent that the list allows people to make more informed decisions about what kind of ideas are being promulgated in the churches, I think it's a good thing.
Tori? You're still muted if you haven't. Okay, there you go.
Oh yeah. Hi, I'm sorry. I live in New Hampshire, and I'm just here to learn. And I don't really know much about the Free State Project, but when it was in the slides,
invite them.
That it was that it had been involved with sponsoring a statewide ban. And I was wondering, Michelle, if you could talk about what that was, and if we could hear Stephen or Alex maybe respond to that, since that seemed to be that was the first major point that came up about why the Free State Project was considered a hate group.
You said a statewide ban?
There was a statewide ban on something which makes it harder for teachers to have honest conversations with students about sexism, and racism, and ableism. This is what, maybe it wasn't in the slide, it was something somebody said, perhaps. I might be thinking about when it came up, but it was one of the points that
Are you against honesty? Are you?
Michelle, if you could speak about that, that would be really.
Hey, Carla, that's your thing that didn't go far enough.
Conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't go.
Yeah, I can't speak to it. I'm not an expert on you know, any of these groups, so I just don't want to say.
Except that you host.
Is there a slide? You see the PowerPoint? See if there's even a slide that sounds like what Tori's talking about.
I know exactly what it's.
1240
No, it's HB 544.
I just don't know how that's
Now.
connected to the Free State
But
project.
yeah, I don't know what the role of Free Staters were in that piece of legislation. And there have been
introduced
a
it.
number of them over the last 3 years. As a nationwide movement right now around this.
So I'm not super familiar with that legislation either, but are you can see this is where was it one of Xandra's slides with the Granite State Progress?
Yes, yes, it was.
Yeah, it would have been because
Then-
that's the group that named your group.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then I'm not familiar with that legislation, but I'm saying that we're her political opponents because she's a Democrat and we're freedom-minded people. So is she trying to conflate us
Steven,
with
can I
Republicans
just
there?
say that all of that is always on the table, these political differences that people have.
Yeah, but you didn't say that to begin with.
enemies that people think we've made across the aisle with people.
Be honest with your biases.
Your group had some key things. The member you booted out, good for you. And the security at an event. And I think the reason I'm hosting this is because it's cast a doubt on your group, whether it was fair to name you. I just think that there are
You were the highlights.
to pay attention, right? To pay attention to what's happening to
Go
your group.
fuck yourself,
We
lady. You're
all
not
have
Pay
to
attention to nothing.
We all have to do that.
You're not paying attention.
I'm not going to speak for the political part, but that's sadly a part of everything we're all
why
doing
I'm not
right
allowed
now.
to speak for anyone.
And so I don't want to spend time on.
You speak for me. You're my governor.
Oh, Carlin,
We've-
I would love for you to be
for
with these people.
joining us, so.
That would be so much fun.
Our group is going to close, but we had one more person. It was Bob, I think, who wanted to say something.
No, you're not. Go ahead. You're not muted
Oh,
anymore.
okay. So this is sort of just an observation, and from my perspective or from my history in life, I think it's a bit of naive to think that it's as simple as watering it down to the pursuit of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, given how complex our culture and our society
So complex that we must be all
and your
slaves.
comment about personal responsibility, I agree 1,000% with that, but where's the evidence of it in a country of over 300 million people? That's what's missing.
New Hampshire.
If-
is
Personal responsibility.
Yep. There's way too much of that that's missing. So that's why I understand the philosophy from 50 years ago when it was first organized in Colorado. I understand
Ooh,
that
he actually
everybody
does know.
really believes in personal freedom.
You're going to kick us out in 1 minute.
One issue I've had with discussions about vaccinations, for instance, is that people saying, well, it's my choice, it's my freedom. And in that process, they are basically saying, but I don't feel any sense of responsibility to anybody.
Yeah, but who was right, Bob? Who was right, Bob? You were wrong, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. And we won't get closure.
There are people on both sides of the issue.
But
there are people
Burden
on
of risk is on the individual, not the rest of
leaning
society.
into this space,
People on
giving
both sides
Stephen
of the issue
a
on the
chance to
vaccination
speak. And folks asking
Association works well.
questions. And
All right, we're gonna
I
kick
hope
us
you all
out in
have a good
15
night.
seconds.
When's the next
And that you're
conversation?
able to connect to.
I think
folks
we
in-
should have Karenville.
When's the next one?
There isn't another one planned right now. Where basically
You need to make up for it. Come on.
Oh, they just
You're
kicked us out.
intellectually honest.
Hang on.
She was
I'm going
intellectually
back-
honest. She needs to make up for it.
I'm going back to the main room. Got to wrap up. See if anything.
Invite her to.
God, should have gone to the one on Monday. Apparently. Is that it? Is that all
Did
we're
the
doing?
facilitator crew?
They're all set.
Okay. All right.
Are we done?
Thanks, everyone. Were you able to join?
All right.
I
guess we're
joined for a
done.
little bit. You can leave the large room and for a breakout and leave it empty. I always
Yeah.
do that.
All right. I'm gonna bounce. All right. we have for our debrief meeting, we have Dennis, and we have been joined by illustrious Free State native Derek. And Derek, I don't know, did you watch some of that presentation before you joined? Like, what's your status here?
Oh, I've been watching the whole thing.
Oh God, so we got a lot to talk about, don't we?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
So
well, most of it was really boring.
Most of it was really boring.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes in the first breakout room where it was all talking about pronouns and being kind to people's social backgrounds or whatever, and don't use slurs or whatever the hell they was talking about.
What even was that?
I was zoned out.
They were real.
It was all just progressive rambling. That's all it was.
Yeah.
They get
Just
into
make
their
nice.
zone where they just talk about nonsense. That's all it is. Nonsense.
It was like we talked about pronouns and we talked about our feelings, and then it was done. And I was like, I actually was hoping for some discussion here, but I gotta admit, I was starting to feel a little bit bad when I found out we were going into breakout rooms, because I was like, should I be streaming this? Should I be streaming? I honestly, I was having an ethical conflict in my head, and then that ethical conflict was immediately satiated by the fact that nothing eventful happened in the breakout rooms.
It's a UNH Zoom meeting. I mean, what an ethical dilemma. I mean,
Well,
I understand, but like, come on, it's a public.
So like, I'm not really that worried. But they did all these notifications in the chat. They were like, if you are a member of the media, formal or informal, then please let us know, and please don't record the breakout rooms. And I was like, I don't consider myself to be a member of the media, and they didn't ask me if I was a member of the media. So I mean, whatever, fair game, man. Like, you're paid for by my taxes. I feel like I get to stream you on the internet.
Yeah, why not?
Exactly. So what are some general thoughts about the presentation that we just endured for the last 2 hours and 17 minutes?
So here's my big takeaway. There's a non-existent threat by groups that have almost no one whatsoever, and be really biased against Free State Project because we mentioned them amongst the non-existent threat and the non-existent groups. Mm-hmm. That was essentially the message that Xandra was pushing here.
I mean, it seems to me that Xandra is responsible for like a disproportionate amount of smears against the Free State Project. Like, I don't consider, I'm not a free. I moved here when I was still a Democrat, so I don't consider myself a Free Stater, but I'm very sympathetic to the Free Stater sphere. And it's like, I have never encountered anyone at any Free State like event or anything, or any Libertarian or LPNH event that like is hateful or bigoted. Like the line consistently from everyone I have ever talked to is, you do what you want and I'm going to do what I want. And like, we might agree sometimes, we might disagree sometimes, but whatever, we aren't going to force each other to do what we want. And it's just like, Xandra is just making this stuff up. It comes from nowhere. And like, I mean, her whole basis is that Chris Cantwell was at one time involved with the Free State Project, but then he got expelled, and she doesn't like to say that. It's like, there's nothing else. And I actually chatted in at one point. I was like, after the first breakout, I chatted in and I said, I'm really confused about like, why is the Free State Project considered a hate group? And Xandra linked over here. I can show it now. Xandra linked to the NHPR article about the woke church list and said, this is the evidence about why the Free State Project is a hate group. Like, no, some guy made a list of churches and it was shared on social media. And they actually quote Jeremy in this article. And Jeremy says, the New Hampshire Council of Churches sounds pretty woke and is probably full of socialists frustrated by how much liberty is winning in New Hampshire. Groups that screech bigotry and racism so casually, they embarrass themselves and distract from what real problems do exist. And of course, Jeremy is 100% correct in what he's saying, but it's like, this is your evidence. This is your evidence that the Free State Project is a hate group, that some guy in the Free State Project made a list of churches and said whether or not they're woke. That's not evidence, Xandra. I'm sorry.
I actually know people.
Okay, Alex, I'll send you the info. Go ahead.
I actually know people in the Free State Project who use that list in order to find pro-LGBT churches. I know people who actually say, because that's something I value. Now, the person who designed it, my guess is that he comes from a conservative background, but he's still a libertarian. He's not going to use violence against somebody who believes this. This is the difference between Xandra and us, right? So we can say, look, those people believe this thing that I disagree with. We're not going to use violence against them. Xandra, on the other hand, her point is these people disagree with me, and therefore we should use violence against them. So just listing something and saying, look, this church supports LGBT. That actually can support a libertarian movement here who is, for example, LGBT. Or it could be somebody who says, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with them or have anything to do with them to do with my family. That's not the place that I want to do my service with. Both is possible, and both actually has occurred within the Free State Project. So I just find it so disingenuous that they would say that just because we have that column on there, that information therefore makes us a hate group. It doesn't make us a hate group. It's just information. Alex, by the way, I love you.
Yeah, Alex, welcome to the stream. Great job.
You too, Derek.
Thank you. I agape you too. Yeah, the thing with the church list was particularly relevant to me as someone who's attempting to practice Christianity, and I don't think that the Reverend Page. What I think she needs to understand is that if she takes issue with this list, she can take issue with it because it's factually incorrect. And by her own admission, I don't think she believes that. I think she thinks it's true. But if she takes issue with the truth of what's on that list, then her problem is not with the Free State Project. Her problem is with Christianity. Mm-hmm. Because it's calling LGBT is a divisive issue within Christianity because it contradicts what's in the Bible. And so at some point you have to acknowledge that this is a tenet of the religion you're promulgating. And if you have an issue with that, you have to turn to the Bible and, read what's in there and take issue with that, and take issue with your creator, perhaps, but not with the Free State Project.
Well, and even then, it's like one person made that list. One person made the list, and then the Free State Project tweeted it out to, provide a reference material for some people. And you can take issue with the content of that list, but like you said, you can't blame the Free State Project as an entity for one person making a list expressing their opinions. Like have a conversation with the person.
Well, they don't know who the person is, and by default, they think in terms of collectivism. Right. Well, and I was trying very, very hard to say, look, everybody's a sovereign individual here. And when you group people like that, you lose all the nuance and complexity and beauty of who an individual is.
Yeah, and Dennis, I know you get your hand up, but I want to highlight Brody's comment in the chat. Her problem is also with the First Amendment. People can speak and think freely, and it's the same thing with the banners against Drag Queen Story Hour. There are a lot of reasons that some people might be opposed to Drag Queen Story Hour that has nothing to do with hating gay people. I don't hate gay people. I don't care if people are gay or trans or anything, and I doubt very much that you guys do either. There are gay people in the Free State movement. There are gay nudists, as Steve Nass I think said, in the Free State movement that were very prominent at Porkfest this past year. And it's no one really cares, but there are perfectly good reasons why people might have a banner against Drag Queen Story Hour that has nothing to do about being hateful to the LGBT community.
Hey, Dennis, we just found out that a very prominent member of the Free State Project was gay the other day. Did any of us give a fuck?
Well, we wouldn't give a fuck. I don't know
No, we
of
don't
whom you're
care.
speaking, but no, we wouldn't give a fuck. What?
Yeah. On Sunday at the cruise.
Dennis is already
Oh.
Dennis
Yeah,
feared
he's already out there. I mean, like, no one cared. No one cared. Like, we
Nobody
just
gives a
found
fuck
out.
about
Yeah,
that.
no one cared.
All
Yeah.
we care about is whether you are going to use violence, your own or the state's, against us. That's all
Right.
we care about. What you do with your own personal life is your business. So let me ask Alex. Alex, let me propose this. You find out that a church is pro LGBTQT, but they renounce violence of the state. Are you more pro or against going to that church?
That's a good question. Let's put it this way. I'm not against the church in this hypothetical question. But ultimately, I'm a man after God's heart. And if their doctrine is not sound, then I don't want to go to that church. That's it. Now, the response is, if I were to meet Reverend Page in a meeting on the street, whatever, my response ought to be to love, right? And to speak the truth in love, and to have a conversation about it, and not to react violently or use the state against the church or anything like that. Like, that's completely antithetical to Christianity, right? Like, love your neighbor as yourself. And so my hope, my prayer is that I can have a productive, honest conversation with Reverend Page, if she so chooses, about the doctrinal issues at hand.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts about the presentation? I personally would love New Hampshire Listens to host a session where they have more free staters talking about the Free State Project, and perhaps have progressives who might, have certain perceptions, partially because of Xandra lying, like, about the free. I would like to see a listening session between free staters and progressives to, hash out what exactly this thing is, because to me it just seems like there has not been a lot of listening from some people in the community, and I think a facilitated conversation could remedy a lot of problems.
I think great job to Steve Nass for putting himself out there and getting in front of this crowd who is trying to take down the Free State or expose them as some hate group or whatever. Steven, he's always great at articulating our positions excellently. So, great job to Steve Nass.
Mm-hmm.
We have some of the best people in the Free State Project. I really mean that. Now, we also have some people that, personally, I don't want to associate with, and that's okay. That's possible within a libertarian society, that you say, these people are just not, they're not honorable, they're not whatever. And I do not want to associate with them. But we have some of the best people I've ever met in the Free State Project. And I love these people. And as a matter of fact, I have three of them right here. And so I would like to see us talking with these people, because I think that once they see our true hearts, if they're not politically motivated like Xandra is, right? Xandra doesn't give a darn. All she wants to do is destroy. She wants to destroy us because we are a threat to the type of control that progressives want, the type of control over parents, over taxpayers, over all that type of stuff. We are a threat to that because we're against that. We're against slavery. We are for freedom. And so for her, she doesn't care what tool she has to use. She's just going to use it. But I think that a lot of people who actually went on that conversation really were scared. Now, what are they scared of? They're scared of something that is less than the risk of being hit by lightning, right? And it was like all this fear of pornography that was produced. But I would like to have a conversation in which we actually invite those people in and we talk about what is it that Free Staters, porcupines love. And we have so many really good porcupines who came here who are not actually, migrants. They actually either lived here like Derek, or they moved here way before the Free State Project, like you, Carlin. We have so many of these types of people, and they go, "Oh my gosh, these people are after the same thing that I'm after." And I think that if we could actually have that real conversation, beyond the Xandra-induced fear, we would actually have people understanding what it is that we're doing and join us and say, yes, I want to live in a consensual society. I want to live in a society in which we do not use violence amongst neighbors, that we actually respect each other. And that's all we're about.
I agree with you, Dennis. I would love to see that conversation happen. And I think that conversation would be civil. And I really think it's a shame that Xandra feels the need to spread lies about people in this community. It is unabashed. Like, it's just false. It's just false. And I think that if people actually talk to Free Staters, they would find that out. Alex, please take the floor.
Thank you, Carlin. Dovetailing off of what Derek and Dennis said, this word fear, right? The thing is that I'm seeing this pattern where when a person holds a mirror up to someone's face and says, look, this is what you believe, they go crazy, right? And that's like with Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok is not doing any kind of advocating for any kind of violence or hatred or anything like that. What they are doing is just holding up a mirror to the woke individuals and saying, look, this is who you are. And if you see who you are like that, and all of a sudden you're triggered, like, that's a problem with you, right? They're literally just republishing those statements. And that's what's happening with Liberty Win, right? With the libertywin.org with the church list. Reverend Page agreed that with those positions, but she takes issue with it being reflected back and saying this is what you actually believe. And that's what the fear is coming in. It's that they're afraid in the context of a larger meaning crisis that's happening in society. It's not anything that we are doing to them. One other point on Dennis's point is on the consent. And I do want to push back just a little bit on that and say that the non-aggression principle is an extremely low bar for human behavior. That's like foundational. And we've been doing yeoman's work. You've been doing a lot of work, especially, and everyone else on this call has been doing a lot of work to get people to understand like this basic tenet. The thing is, though, once we have the non-aggression principle at play, we shouldn't stop there, right? That's not the end, because God knows I've seen people consent to horrible things, two people mutually consenting to things that are completely degenerate. And it's difficult for me to say, like, do I have the right, like, to even say anything, right? It's a private agreement amongst consenting individuals. But I do think that we should step up our game and say not only are we saying that the non-aggression principle is foundational, but we're going to up the bar on our standards of behavior and standards of conduct.
Dennis?
Yes. So, Alex, I totally agree. Libertarianism as an ethical movement is extremely thin. All it says is we will not use violence for our differences of opinion. about Alex's body. Alex gets to use his body as he chooses, and we will not use violence on Alex. Now, does that mean that we are going to agree on how Alex uses his body? I mean, for example, he may be drinking something right now that we don't actually like, that we think is harmful to Alex. And and certainly as a non-liberty person, I can say, that's something that you shouldn't drink. Now, it may be because I don't believe that you should eat meat and it has a meat product in it. It could be because it has some sort of psychedelic, and I think that it harms your mind. But whatever it is, that's outside of what our movement is. Our movement, and I think that this is the type of thing that we should debate at the Shell. But our movement is trying to get people to agree not to use violence. That's the hardest thing. People are so used to using violence on just regular disagreements about whether someone should drink X or should drink Y. And our movement is just saying, look, that's Alex's decision. And Alex may make that decision. Now, we can have an opinion about it, and we can make an argument for it, and we can beg Alex not to do it, and we can disassociate from Alex as long as he does do it. Those are all stuff that we can do outside of libertarianism. But at the very least, we have to agree we will not harm Alex. We will not harm Alex ourselves, nor will we vote for someone to harm Alex for what he just drank. And I don't know what it was that you drank, but I know I'm against it.
Well, the reverse osmosis water is very controversial. But very well said, Dennis. And sometimes here's the something that was very difficult for me to learn about love, right? Like, nobody's born knowing like love, right? That comes with time. And when I say love, I mean like agapeos, right? Agape, right? The love of community, right? For one another, right? It's very, very, very challenging to observe someone that you love and care about deeply and give them the space to do something that you know is going to harm them.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's because yes, like you're recognizing their free will, right? Like that, it's very loving to it's the foundation of love is free will, because if love is not given freely, then it's meaningless, right? So trying to reconcile the fact that I want to allow this person free will while at the same time knowing that they're harming themselves, like vaccines are like in vogue, right?
Hey, hang on. Some people might disagree with that and think vaccines are great, YouTube. Some people think that, and we should acknowledge those people's rights to think that. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Absolutely. It's just difficult when, like, I love my parents, I love my father very much, and I know that they love me very much. We are personally divided on the vaccine issue, but the reason why they react the way they do about my choice to abstain from the vaccine is because they love me and they want me to live a long, healthy life. And they have fears programmed into them that I'm going to get sick or be harmed by not getting the vaccine. And I'm of the completely inverse mindset where I think that they are going to be harmed by it. But we both love each other very much. Right. So this is even more than just like a project of liberty. It's discovering what liberty means, and true freedom is the freedom to fail.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say again for YouTube, just to make sure we're all really clear, I don't think vaccines harm anyone, and I think they're just great, and I think as many people as possible should get vaccinated. And you know what? Alex and I are allowed to express disagreement on that because we're presenting both sides. YouTube.
I apologize, Carlin.
You're fine. You're really fine. I'm being extra cautious.
I don't stream, so but YouTube has their thing going. So I apologize.
We're on YouTube's platform, and so we're going to be respectful of the rules that YouTube likes to enforce upon us on their platform, and that includes presenting both sides.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to note that the vaccines are safe and effective and fully approved by our government, and therefore we should listen to them.
Yeah,
definitely, totally agree. That doesn't say though that Alex doesn't still own his body.
I think it's very obvious that free staters and liberty-minded people are peaceful. We're not a hate group or anything like that. But with this whole Granite State Progress thing, trying to sow seeds of fear and disruption and kind of, I don't know, just attack us in some really brutal ways, associated with some actual hate groups, disingenuous and not very helpful to listening, right, and creating understanding within a community. And yeah, we definitely need to do a lot more outreach with different groups. And funnily enough, in Londonderry, New Hampshire, on October 22nd from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's actually going to be some free staters who have set up a couple booths at the Londonderry Flea Market, which is actually one of the largest flea markets in the state. And so there'll be Bardo Farms selling all sorts of, farm products, meats and such, and then Porcupine Coffee Roasting, selling coffee to some of the participants of the flea market, and just free staters there to present our ideas to the general public, and in this peaceful and loving way that we actually are. We are about non-aggression and understanding with one another and respect that people own their own bodies, and that we're not going to use force or coercion or fraud against one another. And we want to create this society where we can just respect one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would encourage anyone who might be coming across this stream that doesn't consider them a free stater. Maybe you've never met a free stater. Listen, and also say this for the newbies. I was a Democrat for 20 years. I didn't move here for the Free State Project. I moved here for a job, and I met the Free State Project 10 years after I moved to New Hampshire, and they're really nice people, and they just want you to live your life and be happy, and they don't care what you do, and they don't care who you sleep with, and they don't care what your pronouns are. They really don't care. And so I would encourage anyone to connect with actual free staters and ask them about it if you've been convinced by Xandra's nonsense that they're evil, horrible people. And even our Senate candidate, Jeremy Kauffman, spoiler alert, he's just a dad. He is a dad and a nice guy and very smart, and he doesn't hate anyone. And just have a conversation with him.
Yeah, and a lot of the, I don't know Xandra, I don't know anybody that was on that stream except for Stephen. I think what is a recurring pattern in the mindset of many of these people is having an external locus of control, right? If something is wrong around them, they assume that the problem is other people, right? And so their control energy is directed at changing other people instead of changing themselves, instead of having an internal locus of control.
I think that's a really salient point, Alex. I'm glad you made that. All right, gentlemen. Well, I don't want to be presumptuous about anyone's gender, but I'm going to say I think you're all gentlemen here tonight. So we've been streaming for over 3 hours now, and I want to wrap things up, and so I want to ask for any final thoughts on the events of the evening.
I want to say that I would love to have any progressive or even conservative authoritarian come and talk to us, and we can it could be a one-on-one if you're just curious. It can be just come to one of our many events. We have events all the time. We can have a discussion, so we can just sit around in a round table and have a group discussion, and you bring a large number of people, and we would love to share what it is that we're doing. Or we could do a formal debate. We do formal Oxford style debates every month. And we would love to do a debate on any topic that you want. So I just invite for dialogue. This smearing, this kind of it's such it's I'm so disappointed with the group that I used to belong with. I used to be a democratic socialist, and to watch what they do now and how insincere they are, and how they just use these little tactics all the time to smear people and slander them and straw man them without really meaning it, without really believing it. They don't believe it because it's just not true. They know it's not true because they've studied it. So they don't believe it and they use it nonetheless. And I'm so sad about it, and yet I feel anger about it because it hurts people whom I know to be good men and women. And there's people here on this channel, and there's thousands more that I've met who are hurt for no reason other than these people's drive for profit and power and control over other people. And I wish that they would stop it. I wish that they would stop it. I hope that eventually we just have enough power that we can just say, look, you can lament as much as you want, but you cannot use the violence of the state to abuse people. So anyway, I would love for them to come. Please contact me, Dennis Pratt, DennisGPratt@gmail. You can contact me at any time. I can set up different meetings and groups, discussions, and debates. We're just setting up debates right now for the next couple of months. Love to have you guys come. Please contact us. We are actually a very welcoming and safe group. You will not find a more welcoming and safe group because we do not demand that you obey any particular dogma, only that you do not initiate violence against another person.
Excellent. Derek, Alex, any final thoughts?
Come out and say hi to Free Staters. Go to fsp.org/calendar, find an event near you, and come say hi.
Excellent.
I just want to thank you, Carlin, for making this conversation happen, for streaming it, and for inviting me on. I want to thank the individuals who got in touch with you and said that I was seeking to join, and I look forward to more discussions, and I'm just thankful to be here. So thank you and God bless.
Awesome. And I just want to thank Rick for the super chat. Thanks for doing this. Jonah Lynn, best spy stream ever. And Absolute Defiance, thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. And it's been wonderful having everyone on. I do stream regular content about a variety of topics. So we're streaming about psychics tomorrow. So if Free State Project isn't your thing, you can come back to the channel tomorrow at 1 and we'll talk about psychics and all that good stuff. But I do just want to say, again, I would really encourage anyone who has questions about the Free State Project to actually interact with the Free State Project. And I am going to go ahead and pimp PorkFest. I know it's not till next year, but it is my favorite week of the year. And I would really encourage people in New Hampshire, especially, there's no reason for you not to come up to PorkFest. Honest to God, it is a drive. Like you might live a couple hours away from it, but it's a very doable drive. And especially Democrats, progressives, trust me, even when I was a Democrat, I would have loved PorkFest. Come and interact with them. Go to some sessions, talk to some people, eat some food. It's a fun time. It's a great event. And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the fact it's in our backyard. We might as well anyway. All right. All right, guys, that's all we have for today. Thank you all for coming on the channel. Dennis, Alex, Derek, I really appreciate all of you. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. But guys, mount that like button on the way out the door, and we'll see everyone for the next Xandra hate stream. All right, guys, have a good night.